Return 10 times as much, 17, owing a debt and returning the money back, paying with one's life after murdering someone else, these are all right and proper. Huang Bei Yu exclaimed with an icy voice. Suddenly, the corner of her lips curled up into a cold smile. Father, we are all your daughters. How come you are that harsh to me? Xiao Yuan Cheng's corner of his lips shook. A couple of times, he tried to open his mouth but he wasn't able to say anything. They are all his daughters. But towards Xiao Yun and Xiao Ru, he is a gentle father. But towards Huang Bei Yu? Besides transferring the hatred towards Princess Zhong towards her, he had never completed the responsibility as a father. Huang Bei Yu stared at him and coldly grinned. She slowly stated, Xiao Yuan Cheng, you are as expected a bastard. My mother, during that time, was blind. That's why she had married you. Xiao Yuan Cheng's body was frozen. The original body which was shaking in fear suddenly was stirred up. With a pale white face, he started screaming, Your mother had married me but not one day was it out of truth. If it weren't that I was blinded in the past, I would definitely not marry her. Huang Bei Yu's body trembled. She furrowed her eyebrows, inquiring, Why? The reason why she married me is because Xiao Yuan Cheng suddenly calmed down, not as moved. She suddenly thought of something then stopped talking. Seeing that his face was that pale white and the expression was painful, Huang Bei Yu felt a little sympathetic towards the man. Not needing him to say it out loud, she also knew that the reason why Princess Zhong married him is definitely not because she liked him. This Xiao Yuan Cheng was that cowardly, so despicable and shameless. How could someone like Princess Zhong like someone like him? In between this, there must be a lot of things that people weren't revealed to. Maybe it had to do with political factors and maybe something else. However, no matter what it is, could they blame Princess Zhong for this? It is Xiao Yuan Cheng who is greedy and wanted to seek instant benefits, so he chose to marry Princess Zhong, becoming the emperor's son-in-law. Had he had a moral backbone, he wouldn't live a life without dignity for half his life. Huang Bei Yu kneeled down and looked at his eyes. One word, one sentence. Father, what you had done in the past, I cannot look into this. But I will ask you something. You need to answer me truthfully. What matter? Xiao Yuan Cheng replied, stuttering. He suddenly violently came into contact with Huang Bei Yu's cold and clear eyes. The hair within his body had all stood up. In the past decades, how come he had not noticed that Huang Bei Yu had such a pair of intimidating eyes? How did my mother pass away? Huang Bei Yu's small and exquisite hand harshly held onto his chin, stopping him from avoiding her gaze due to fear. Xiao Yuan Cheng trembled, sick, due to sickness. A flash of cold light appeared in Huang Bei Yu's eyes. You are lying. How come I would be lying? In those years, she had been sick and from the palace, they had ordered for a couple of tens of palace physicians to come over but they all could do nothing about it. Up until she passed away, there has always been an imperial physician over caring for her. The cause of her death, a couple of tens of imperial physicians had all claimed it due to sickness. Everyone knew this. Suddenly, within Xiao Yuan Cheng's brain, something flashed over. He suddenly violently lifted his head. He widened his eyes, looking at Huang Bei Yu. With a serious voice, could it be that you're suspicious of me? Huang Bei Yu was stunned. Could it be that this matter, Xiao Yuan Cheng didn't know a thing at all? She understood how to observe one's emotions and expressions and psychology. She knew what it is like when someone lied. Xiao Yuan Cheng was stupid and if he tried to lie, it wouldn't be that brilliant. It could not possibly escape her eyes. Seeing that she was stunned momentarily, Xiao Yuan Cheng pulled his hand away from her and suddenly turned courageous. Return 10 times as much, 18. Why would I go harm her? I like her that much. The voice changed from being stirred up to slowly becoming softer. Xiao Yuan Cheng landed on the ground, weakly. Huang Bei Yu slowly stood up. The face a little distracted. Murdering Princess Zhong, this matter, Xiao Yuan Cheng knew nothing about it. More or less, this comforted her a little bit. If Xiao Yuan Cheng not only harmed his daughter but also killed his wife, then he really isn't even worth to be a bastard. Bei Yu, could it be that you don't believe me? I didn't harm your mother. She, indeed, passed away due to sickness. The imperial physicians during that time can all serve as evidence. Xiao Yuan Cheng suddenly stood up and pulled at the hem of Huang Beiyu's shirt, scaredly. He was afraid she will bring this matter up to the emperor. He didn't try to harm Princess Zhong before. But as long as Huang Beiyu exclaimed this to the emperor, based on the emperor's affection to the princess, he will definitely not have a road to live anymore. Xiao Yuan Cheng was incomparably frightened. He pulled onto the hem of Huang Beiyu's shirt, not letting go. Xiao Yuan Cheng, don't you dare be presumptuous. Far away came a man's yell. Then a silhouette suddenly appeared and pulled Xiao Yuan Cheng to the side. Xiao Yuan Cheng shouted out loud due to fright. The bodyguards within Ting Wei Sai who were observing from afar immediately rushed over and paid respects to the person who arrived. Salutations to Xiao Yarrow Wang. The dark green clothes deviated and Xiao Yarrow Wang turned around, looking at Huang Beiyu. Within his gaze, there were hints of distress. Are you okay? Huang Beiyu shook her head. Looks like Xiao Yarrow Wang had misunderstood. Before Xiao Yuan Cheng was just pulling on her clothes to beg for help, not that he wanted to do something to her. However, she wasn't in the mood to explain for Xiao Yuan Cheng. Right now, she was all over the place in her heart. With regards to the cause of death for Princess Zhong, it had turned into an even bigger mystery. If this mystery wasn't solved, she wouldn't be able to obtain peace in her heart. Bring him down and give him to Ting Wei Daren for his sentence, Xiao Yarrow Wang coldly ordered. Then he walked up, patting her shoulders. Don't be upset, Besides your family, you also have me. What happened within the manor of Princess Zhong, he had heard also. Before while he came over, he had met the people of Ting Wei Sai. This Xiao Yuan Cheng actually wanted to set the place on fire and harm Princess Beiyu. He had also heard of this. In his heart, besides feeling distressed, it was even more distress. The moment he thought about how she grew up all these years within the home of the wolves, how could he be in a good mood? Xiao Yuan Cheng had already planned on killing her. Then before, the tortures that she had to endure must be even more. Huang Beiyu lifted her head and looked at him. In her heart actually, she wasn't that upset. After all, Xiao Yuan Cheng wasn't really her father. It's probably because in her body, the same blood flowed within. Therefore, no matter what, she was unable to make her heart feel indifferent as though the ice. The family properties that belonged to her were stolen by her biological father and he also planned on taking her life. This type of situation, when thinking about it, she was a little upset and felt a little sorrowful. Princess Beiyu, you don't need to be upset. People that are not worth it, you don't need to place them in your heart. The gentle and warm voice rang. Feng Lian Yi walked over with a body of white. Huang Beiyu stared at him. Within the foggy black eyes, there was a faint light flashing by. She suddenly opened her mouth, inquiring, Prince Yi, in the past when your father emperor sent you over to Nanyi country as a hostage, did you ever hate him? Feng Lian Yi was stunned. The faint purple eyes were calm, holding no emotions. That feeling, I forgot that already. Forgot? That was easily said. Even till now, she still remembered when she went with Princess Zhong to welcome the 9th prince who would become hostage to Nanyi country. The Floating Forest. 1. At that time, he was still young but he didn't cry. However, he watched as the ambassador who brought him over indifferently left without even looking at him. Within his eyes, he held hatred. How could she not hate? No matter how strong her heart was, she couldn't take the betrayal. Wang Ye, there is a lot of things going on within the manor today. I might be inconsiderate while treating you guys today. Next time, I will apologize to the Wang Ye. Huang Beiyu lowered her voice saying this, then took Dong Ling with her, leaving. Xiao Yarrow Wang watched her back, shaking his head and sighing. After all, she was still a young girl. No matter how strong she was, she will still be hurt. Did I say something wrong? Feng Lian Yi inquired with a faint smile. Xiao Yarrow Wang was frozen. Suddenly, he asked, Yi, do you really have no feelings regarding this? No. Feng Lian answered simply and straightforwardly. The gentle smile almost led people to become immersed in it. Xiao Yarrow Wang peered at him and shook his head. Sometimes, He really can't read this person. I need to go to the palace to see the emperor. Go back early. Okay. Feng Lianyi smiled as Xiao Yarrow Wang left, then the smile on his face gradually disappeared. After he patted the folding fan in his hand twice on his palm, he turned around heading in the direction that Huang Beiyu had left in. Today, everyone within the manor of Princess Zhong felt in danger. They were all busy and everywhere around, people within Ting Wei Sai were walking around. No one had noticed him. The backyard within the manor of Princess Zhong was where the family lived. Ting Wei Sai had already checked through it. Right now, everyone had come out and it was inconvenient for him to go inside. Therefore, he could only stay outside to see. Prince Yi didn't leave yet. Is there something? Huang Beiyu walked over from behind, the eyes looked at him coldly. Feng Lianyi was slightly shocked. How did she appear behind him? I came to find you. He said the truth. No matter how many lies he formed, he wouldn't be able to get it past this girl. There was no expression on Huang Beiyu's face. She coldly inquired, "Why are you looking for me?" Although the tone was cold, however, she didn't drive him away. Therefore, Feng Lianyi was a little comforted. Principal Kang he already decided that the day after, all the teachers within the school who has experience can take students who won 4 ranks above into the floating forest to experience. Feng Lianyi faintly smiled at her. After all the things that happened within the manor of Princess Zhong, I am guessing Princess Beiyu isn't in the mood to go experience. Whether I go or not, what does that have to do with you? Huang Beiyu icily glanced at him. Feng Lianyi smiled. You want to find the materials in order for me to refine marrow cleansing pill, so how could this be none of my business? These materials, I will definitely give them to you. Going to the floating forest to experience, I will definitely go too. Feng Lianyi glanced at her admirably. After what happened, yet your heart isn't confused. Your mind is clear as well as your target. Princess Beiyu lets people to admire her are. You're over-complimenting me. After you finish your words, you can leave. Today, within the manor of Princess Zhong, we are not receiving any guest. Quickly, he was given the notice to leave. Unavoidably, Feng Lianyi felt a little discouraged. Seeing her cold and heartless face, he couldn't help to sigh. I am worried that you might be upset, and as it seems like, it was unnecessary. Huang Beiyu's clear and icy gaze looked over. How come you are worried for me? Because, he dragged on. The handsome face, the smile gradually turned charming. Next time, I will tell you. Humph. If you're not going to say, then leave. Huang Beiyu felt depressed, leaving him and walking in large strides. The floating forest, too. Feng Lianyi laughed out loud, yelling from behind, Princess Beiyu, I am the substitute zither teacher. This time, I am responsible along with Professor Guo to bring the students of the Imperial College into the floating forest. When the time comes, you can't be that impolite to me. He is responsible for bringing the team. Huang Beiyu was stunned. Then she turned her head around to find out the white clear silhouette was already gone. Such a quick action. Returning back to Rongyu Xian, Huang Beiyu started to plan to go to the floating forest the day after. This experience, at the least, they would have to go for half a month. Everything that happened within the family, she would have to rely on Dongling to take care of it. Concubine Qin, who was originally arrogant and domineering, as well as concubine Shui, who had a deep scheme, were now imprisoned. Xiao Yuan Cheng was also caught by Ting Wei Sai. Within the manor, there probably won't be huge waves rising. She had just started to show off her prestige, so she wasn't really scared that someone might do something to Dongling. However, after all, Dongling was still young. It's better to have someone look after this with her. In this manner, the only person who could be relied upon in some way was probably Concubine Fang. Concubine Fang knows her status as 11 Tian, and under pressure due to this status, she will be loyal and help Dongling. After she ordered some matters to Dongling, she and Dongling personally went to Concubine Fang's Kui Zhu Yuan to deliver her message to Concubine Fang. After Concubine Fang heard this, she felt overwhelmed by the favor of a superior. Princess, giving me such a great manor to take care of, I'm afraid Concubine Fang, besides you, there is no one else I can trust within the manor. This matter, you must agree to it. Concubine Fang hesitated for a second and didn't open her mouth yet when Xiao Ling smiled, pulling on Concubine Fang's hand. With an intimate look on, "Concubine, since the third sister trusts you that much, you should just agree. Don't let the third sister be disappointed." Huang Bei Yu looked coldly at her. She didn't teach Xiao Ling a lesson yet due to Concubine Fang. But this ungratified girl who acted pragmatically, she won't let her go. Concubine Fang had also thought of this layer. She understood her daughter the best and knew that Xiao Ling was the type of person who acted according to power and was born naturally arrogant and proud. If she helped Huang Bei Yu to look after the manor of Princess Zhong, who knows how arrogant Xiao Ling would be when she goes out? This manor of Princess Zhong can't have its reputation ruined. Don't say that Concubine Fang doesn't have any affections towards her daughter, her own daughter. How could she not think of her? Even though Xiao Ling led her heart to chill, in the end, she was still her daughter which she gave birth to after 10 months. But the affection between mother and daughter, in the end, was only the affection. She didn't want Xiao Ling to become someone who became dominant and rampant. She just hoped that in the future, she could marry Xiao Ling off to a normal man. Hopefully, that man would be able to suppress Xiao Ling's rampant personality. Therefore, Concubine Fang thought about it before replying, "I see, how about this? I am not really familiar with the matters of the housekeeper. However, Dongling is older and understands more things. In the days that Princess isn't here, young Miss Dongling should look after the house and I will look by the side." Hearing her words, Huang Bei Yu admired Concubine Fang a little bit from the bottom of her heart. As expected, Princess Zhong's eyesight was pretty good, seeing how nice she had been towards her. This Concubine Fang was indeed a reliable person. Just a pity that she had given birth to Xiao Ling. What a disgraceful daughter. Mother, such a big Princess Zhong's manor, isn't it not appropriate to let Dongling, a young lady, to look after it? Xiao Ling hurriedly exclaimed. In her heart, she hated this mother who failed to live up to expectations. What a great future placed in her hands, the wealth, power, and honor. How come she didn't know how to treasure it? The Floating Forest. 3. No wonder all these years, she could only hide in this small Kuizhu Yuan, receiving the pent-up frustrations. Concubine Fang, young Miss Dongling is smarter than mother and also Princess Bei Yu's person. Having her look after the house, naturally, everyone will be convinced. Xiao Ling was so angry she couldn't say anything. She humphed, the face revealing an obvious look of disdain which led Concubine Fang to feel hurt. Concubine Fang was not comforted by her look. She thought about giving her a little warning to avoid having her go out and use her powerful connections to intimidate people. "Princess, these 2 days, you have caught Concubine Shui and Qin. This matter, within the entire manor, everyone is well convinced by you. In the future, there probably won't be anyone who dared to follow suit the 2 people. Otherwise, they will land themselves with the same consequences." Huang Bei Yu understood Concubine Fang's meaning. She faintly smiled. "I don't like people who are not clean under my sight. In the future, whenever I catch one, I will definitely not let them go easily. Our manor needs to restart maintaining order." Troubling the Concubine Fang. "Princess is being too polite. I am just helping by the side. The actual person looking after the manor is young Miss Dongling. Her words are the ones that count." Dongling smiled, bending her body. "In the future, please remind me of some things, Concubine Fang." Xiao Ling peered at them, watching as the 3 of them echoing one another. In her heart, she was secretly anxious. Concubine Shui and Qin aren't here anymore. Xiao Yun, Xiao Ru, and Xiao Zhongqi, them, can't be arrogant anymore. How come it's still not the day she can stand up proudly? "Big sister." Huang Bei Yu glanced at Xiao Ling. "The half a month that I won't be here, please look after Concubine Shui and Qin within the prison some more." Xiao Ling was stunned then hurriedly smiled, nodding her head. "Third sister, please be comforted. I will definitely look after them." Humph. Those 2 concubines had looked down upon her in the past quite often. Now that they are imprisoned and Huang Bei Yu is letting her look after them, she won't act polite to them. Concubine Fang stared at her daughter helplessly. She secretly shook her head, sighing. They both have the same father, and while Xiaoling is a complete stupid person and thought that she had gained a benefit in which she can go teach concubine Shui and Qin a lesson, she didn't know that she had fallen into Huang Beiyu's trap. Going to find trouble for concubine Shui and Qin and letting people hate her, she won't gain anything from it. However, there was nothing she could do. Those who had a smarter mind, how could they have fallen into Huang Beiyu's trap? After ordering these matters to them, Huang Beiyu returned back to Rong Yuxian. She watched as the day turned dark and another day passed. She thought about how the poison within Zhong Yi's body hasn't been treated yet and how the day after she will be going to the floating forest. Within a short day's time, how could she find the antidote? With a depressed mood, she started to flip through 100 Refinements scroll without even eating dinner. She had no idea what to do, and instead, she felt even more irritated. Huang Beiyu, you don't need to look for it. No matter how strong the medicine saint was, in the end it's just one person. Based on his life's worth of skills, he might not be able to beat the sky-swallowing red snake. That is a spiritual beast. Yang, who had been quiet for a while, finally slowly started to say something. Spiritual beast, this snake had bitten me before and led Zhongyi to be poisoned. I definitely won't let him go. Huang Beiyu harshly banged the table. These few days, she had been irritated about what had happened in the family. So now, her attitude was a little out of control. Yang took delight in her trouble. Just based on you right now, wanting to fight with the sky-swallowing red snake, you're still a little weak. However, if you understand the secret of the beast without boundaries, maybe that would be different. Humph. Old monster, from day to night, you keep on instigating me to find the honorable spirit and worship him as a master. You are very happy. The floating forest. 4. I don't take pleasure in doing that. The reason being is that I reside in your body, so I can't bear to see you so weak. If you encounter a strong opponent in the future, just don't implicate me to die with you. Yang's unease is not unreasonable. Huang Bei, you would be facing an entirely different world once she enters the floating forest. Although they are just going to explore the outer part of the forest, which mostly only lower-level spirit beast inhabit, it is not absolutely safe. They might run out of luck and encounter a mythological spirit beast that had roamed to the outer forest. Huang Bei, you coldly humphed, you useless old monster. Are you sure you don't know anything else related to the beast without boundaries? Hey, don't call me an old monster all day long. I am not that old. Yang suddenly unhappily complained. Huang Bei, you aggressively snarled in her heart, don't talk any nonsense. Do you know or not? Yang grievously closed his mouth and thought about it. He replied, I don't know about other things. But I do know that the beast without boundaries is related to him. There must be a spell placed on the beast without boundaries, and within that spell, there is a summoning talisman. The summoning talisman is much more powerful than the summoning technique. The summoning technique can only be used by making a contract with a spirit beast, bounding the summoner and the spirit beast together. The summoner and the spirit beast will both be able to utilize each other in this contract. In contrast, as long as you have the ability to refine a high-level talisman, you would be able to summon any spirit beast at will, even mythological spirit beast. TSK. When Huang Beiyu heard this, she couldn't help but become envious. The summoning talisman does the same function when she forces spirit beasts to surrender to her and follow her orders. Both methods lead to the same result, but for her to force a spirit beast to surrender, she would have to first meet the spirit beast for it to work. But it differs with the summoning talisman. As long as one has the ability, one can summon any spirit beast in the country. This made Huang Beiyu eager to try refining a summoning talisman. She can't help but wish she would be able to master how to refine summoning talisman immediately. Yang could see the longing on Huang Beiyu's face. He mischievously laughed and continued to entice her. Within the spell, there isn't only a summoning talisman. There are also spells refined by using different attributes of vitality. The higher the refiner's vitality, the higher the rank the spell is. Huang Beiyu narrowed her eyes and asked, Vitality? You live inside my body. Where would I be able to find any vitality? There is definitely a specific method to unlock the spell. You will naturally know the method if you go and worship the Honorable Spirit as your master, Yang mischievously laughed as he said that. Okay. Let's go look for the honorable spirit right now. Huang Bei Yu took out her cloak and draped it over herself. It's the perfect time to sneak out now that it's deep into the night. You are really going? Yang's voice sounded a little excited. Huang Bei Yu summoned the Ice-Swan spirit bird and began flying. However, the direction she is heading towards is not Lingyang College. Instead, she is heading towards Crown Prince Zhongyi's other courtyard that is located in the outskirt of the city. Yang asked, "Aren't you going to find the honorable spirit?" Huang Bei Yu completely ignored Yang's question. She circled around the sky above Zhongyi's courtyard but she didn't land. Inside the courtyard, there was only one room with lights on. The window of that room is open so she could see Zhongyi sitting in the study room reading a book. He was wearing a black cloak which made his complexion look even worse. Zhongyi coughed a few times. This was probably because of the open window which allowed the wind to blow in. Eunuch Yong'an immediately came over and closed the window. After looking at the window for a while, she said to the Ice-Swan spirit bird, "Let's go. Let's head to the 7th tower." Hee. So you actually came here to make up your mind. Crown Prince Zhongyi merely saved you once, yet you're making so much effort to help him. This really makes people not understand, Yang said with an undertone in his words. Of course you can't understand, it's not like you're human. Huang Bei Yu insightfully threw those words. Yang choked on those words and almost want to kill himself. Humph. Does he want to ridicule her? This old monster still need to work on it. The Floating Forest, 5. At night, the forest surrounding the 7th tower was very quiet. There was no one around, just like the last time she had come. The scenery was gloomy and eerie. The atmosphere was layered with a thick scent of danger. This time, Huang Bei Yu know exactly where to go. She immediately entered the 7th tower. The original vitality that was around the window from last time was gone. It seems like the honorable spirit already guessed that she would come. This time, she doesn't plan on taking the stairs all the way down. She made the Ice-Swan spirit bird shrink into a smaller size and made it fly her down the dark stairway. Once again, she appeared before the large stone doors. Huang Bei Yu pulled on the secret mechanism on the door with some force. When she pulled the door open, flames suddenly burst forward. The sudden brightness of the flames made her unable to even open her eyes. The painful lesson she had experienced last time was still fresh in her mind. This damnable place is like hell. If she could, she would never return to this place again. Ice, let's go in, Huang Bei Yu heavily said as she looked at the burning sea of fire. She turned around and jumped on the Ice-Swan spirit bird's back and flew into the sea of fire. They didn't fly far when a dark shadow slowly approached them. The dark shadow turned out to be a species of bird. The size of the bird isn't as big as the Ice-Swan spirit bird. However, the bird was pitch black, making it appear frightening. Huang Bei Yu narrowed her eyes. She already started emitting her fighting aura, preparing to fight the bird. The Ice-Swan spirit bird suddenly said, "Master, don't worry. The black-winged eagle is in charge of communication and transmitting orders in the spirit beast world. Although their speed is very fast, they never take the initiative to attack. But if someone wants to steal information from them, their ability will erupt. When it fights, it's frightening." This is the first time she had heard about the black-winged eagle. She had never heard of such a role in the spirit beast world. Huang Bei Yu slowly put away her fighting aura. She stood up from the back of the Ice-Swan spirit bird. She held her hand as she watched the black-winged eagle fly over to them. A small ball of fire was sealed inside the crystal ball. The black-winged eagle flew over to Huang Bei Yu. Spirit beasts and humans aren't able to communicate. Thus, the black-winged eagle could only hope to communicate with Huang Bei Yu through the Ice-Swan spirit bird. "Master, he said that the honorable spirit isn't here. The honorable spirit will wait for you to return from the floating forest first before holding the ceremony to worship him as your master. There are 2 items inside the crystal ball. The first item is the punishment flame which can be used to save Crown Prince Zhongyi. The second item is a simple spell that might be able to help you." Huang Bei Yu asked, Isn't it said that the honorable spirit would not leave the seventh tower? Then where did he go? However, the black-winged eagle had already turned around and flew away. As expected, the black-winged eagle is only in charge of communications. It doesn't care about anything else. However, what's important is that she now has the punishment flame. Now, she can save Zhongyi. It doesn't matter whether the honorable spirit is here or not. After all, she doesn't really care about worshipping him as her master. Ice, let's go. The snow-white ice Lian spirit bird flapped its large wings and flies over the sea of fire and past the stone doors. It flew up the dark flights of stairs and out the window. Huang Bei sat on the grass outside the seventh tower thinking for a while. The punishment flame will burn for half an hour to completely cleanse the poison. The process would be extremely painful. She believes that Zhongyi wouldn't want her to look at him while he goes through the process. She took the simple spell out from the crystal ball. Huang Bei gave the punishment flame that is sealed within the crystal ball to the Ice Lian spirit bird to give to Zhongyi. After that, she went to the Bug family's mansion by herself. She would have to go to the floating forest the day after tomorrow. This trip would be a long trip. So before she leaves, she wants to teach Luo something so that he would practice it when she's gone. In the middle of the night, a heart-wrenching scream could be heard from the outskirts of Linhui City. The floating forest. 6. Huang Bei suddenly halted her footsteps. The face turned cold and a burst of a powerful pressure suddenly harshly pressed forward. That pressure was too strong, which for a second led her heart to feel as though it was pressed down tightly by something. She had difficulty breathing. When she escaped from the powerful pressure, she already felt that pressure leaving. Huang Bei furrowed her eyebrows. Instantly, she chased after in the direction of the pressure. There was actually this level type of master within Linhui City. How is it possible? This type of pressure probably already surpassed the strength of a 9-star summoner. They probably are on the 4th rank. On the Kart mainland, there basically wasn't that many 4th-rank masters. At least, within Nanyi country, it didn't even exist. She was a natural master who concealed her whereabouts and aura. She quietly and without any noise approached the pressure. Humph, a fool who won't admit their mistake. It's better to kill you off. The cold and ruthless voice of a woman rose from afar. Right after, a burst of lighting suddenly exploded which lightened up half the sky. The huge raging 7-tailed dragon's body swelled by many times. In the sky, it shouted out loud and let out thunder rolls. Right then, the weather rolled about and then followed by the atmosphere. Stop looking down at people. What are you? You dared to act so arrogant on the land of Nanyi country. The furious yell within the air appeared to be incomparably coarse. The man on the raging 7-tailed dragon raised a heavy sword, and on the body of the sword, numerous thunder rays tangled around. He held a fierce face, already reaching the state in which he was about to completely explode. The hair on the head all stood up. That person was Sima Guiyang, Nanyi country's one of the very best 9-star summoner. His strength was definitely not to be questioned. Previously, in Nanyi country, he was given the name as Undefeatable Legend. It could even be said that he was a paragon. But the completely violent Sima Guiyang and the raging 7-tailed dragon under the powerful pressure seemed insignificant. Go, raging 7-tailed dragon. Let this fool taste our strength. Sima Guiyang hollered, driving the raging 7-tailed dragon suddenly down. Huang Bei couldn't help to furrow her eyebrows. This Sima Guiyang has a wooden brain. Meeting such a powerful opponent, he should be thinking of his next steps in order to save himself. Instead, he wanted to drive himself over. This wasn't what Huang Bei considered to be a powerful enemy, but this pressure, not needing to think about it, she knew how much it differed from her based on strength. It was completely like striking a stone with an egg. There wasn't the need to die. Since you are looking to die, I will grant it. That clear and icy voice seemed to be haughty and considered themselves to be arrogant. Hong Lian, since there isn't any news, then let's go. There is no need to stir up trouble in Nanyi country. Another voice even icier rang. It sounded languid and undisciplined. It was a young man's voice. Hearing these led people to feel a sense of chilliness rising from the chest. After I get rid of this small character, then we can go. How busy is this? It's just a matter of raising the hand. After the arrogant woman completed her sentence, she really raised her hand, and the movement was so rapid it was a little unbelievable. Only to see a clear icy light flashed by towards the raging seven-tailed dragon abruptly, then it was divided into two parts from the sword's light. The floating forest, 7, oh, 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 the miserable roar sounded and led the air to shake like a leaf. Sima Guiyang held a shocked face, and on his face, quite a bit of blood splashed on him. When the sword's light chopped the raging seven-tailed dragon in half and brought back, the aftermath of the sword's light streaked across his chest. One move. Just one move. Under the violent state, under complete preparation, Sima Guiyang and the raging seven-tailed dragon cooperated with one another but was killed immediately under one move. That strength was too abnormal. Unable to differentiate the good from the bad. That person left this sentence down arrogantly, the left with the other person. Huang Bei, you stood in the shadow of the corner of the wall. She furrowed her eyebrows watching this. From a distance from here, plus that one man also had their backs against her, she wasn't able to see what type of people that had made the moves going against the light to see. It's just that walking out at this moment and looking clearly at them, only to see that behind that woman followed an enormous and deep red snake. Sky-swallowing red snake. She basically came to the judgment that it was a sky-swallowing red snake from the first look. That time after she fainted from the bite of a young sky-swallowing red snake, she had dreamed of an adult-sized sky-swallowing red snake often. That type of huge size was the same as this. The sky-swallowing red snake was a super spiritual beast. After it turned into an adult, it will come into the rank of a godly beast. The strength was frightening and it was unbelievable. If they weren't the same level summoners, they had no way of concluding an agreement with one another. Before seeing this, that woman who killed the person indeed held a lot of strength. Just one move and she was able to kill Sima Guiyang and the raging seven-tailed dragon altogether. This type of strength, even she couldn't consider herself to be better. Humph. Just who is she? Huang Bei, you slowly walked out and stared at the raging seven-tailed dragon who was on the floor, almost about to die. It tightly held on to its last breath. This type of matter, she can't even save them. Ah. Sima Guiyang could still let out a weak noise. However, the summoner and spiritual beast's lives are linked together. If the raging seven-tailed dragon can't live, then naturally Sima Guiyang was about to be over too. Huang Bei, you walked over and helped Sima Guiyang from the ground. With a deep voice, she inquired, "Who are they?" Sima Guiyang looked at her only to see a 12 or 13-year-old girl. His eyes were filled with sorrow and desperation. What can this little girl do to help her? Huang Bei, you saw through his thoughts. This fool wanted to find someone reliable to spread the news out. A little girl naturally had no use to him. I am 11 Tian. The hoarse voice slowly opened its mouth. Sima Guiyang widened his eyes, obviously not believing this a little. This was only a 12 or 13-year-old girl. How could she be 11 Tian, a 9-star summoner, who had defeated him? Now that the ice spirit bird wasn't here, Huang Bei, you could only take out the cloak, drape it over her shoulders, and pull the brim of the hat down. After she communicated with Wn Shou Wu Jiang, the hair slowly turned fiery red. The hair slowly fell out of the cloak. She, 11 Tian. Sima Gia trembled as he exclaimed the words. In his heart, he still held disbelief over it. But the truth in front of him forced him to believe this no matter what. Who knew who really knew As it turned out, the 9-star summoner who owned the ice spirit bird was actually a 12-year-old girl. Wait, how come this little girl looks quite familiar? You are. The shaking hand pulled the brim of the hat on the cloak down a little bit. Sima Guiyang shockingly declared, "You are Princess Bei Yu." The floating forest, 8, that's right, I'm Huang Bei Yu. Huang Bei Yu, fortunately, pulled down the brim of the hat and the fiery red hair. The exquisite appearance was cold like ice, but she held some type of noble aura. Sima Guiyang grabbed onto her skinny arm. Princess Zhong's daughter is indeed not an ordinary person. He seemed to have grabbed onto hope and excitedly trembled. The more he trembled, the more blood flooded out from the heart. Who are they? Tell me. Huang Beiyu hurriedly exclaimed. When she looked at his state, she knew that he obviously wasn't going to make it. Jiu from Sima Guian's throat, he difficultly let out some noises. I don't know either. You don't know why they targeted you? Sima Guiyang difficultly explained. They came here to look for something. Look for something? What are the masters at that level looking for? Look for what? Huang Beiyu stared as his eyes gradually turned to slacken, so she hurriedly raised her hand over and pressed on his wound. Quickly say. What are they looking for? Sima Guiyang opened his mouth and his face revealed an incomparably fierce look. After he tried to make some noises within his throat, he finally announced the 4 indistinct words. Beast without boundaries. What? Huang Beiyu didn't seem to have heard clearly, inquiring once again. But in reality, she had heard clearly each of the 4 words. But she dare not to believe this. Sir Guiyang. Sir Guiyang. Huang Beiyu shook Sima Guian's body, but without hope, he ran out of his last breath. From a far distance, there was the sound of people coming over. Although the movements of the battle were quite big, it was settled within a moment. Therefore, the people rushing over would naturally be slower. Huang Beiyu didn't want to cause problems, but she also didn't want to give the beast without boundaries information to anyone. That black jade, only she knew of its existence. Within Nanyi country, no one knew what the beast without boundaries was. No matter what the 2 people's motives were, beast without boundaries was hers. No one could think of stealing it from her. After she placed down Sima Guian's corpse, Huang Beiyu quickly left from the other side. The mansion of the family of Bug. Huang Beiyu directly infiltrated into the place where Luo was practicing martial arts like last time. She stared at the young man who was waving the sword around under the moonlight, and within her heart, she couldn't help to feel comforted by a bit. The silhouette appeared behind him without noise, and the finger softly tapped against the sharp edge of the sword. Your practice is not bad. Luo violently turned around, with a happy tone. Master, you're here. Huang Beiyu nodded her head. Due to what happened before, she wasn't in a pleasant mood. Then she thought about how she was going for an experience in the floating forest the day after, so there wasn't that much time to teach Luo. Therefore, she didn't want to talk nonsense. She directly took out the flame beheading that Xiao Qi Yuan gave to her last time. This sword skill, you first slowly try to understand this. Recently, I have some things going on. This month, I probably can't come. You definitely can't be lazy. Luo listened to this and his face fell down. Master, where are you going? There are some important matters that I must go settle with. Luo's eyes turned around and lowered his voice, saying, Then Master, you must come back early. No problem. Huang Beiyu thought about it, then declared, Tonight, the matter that you and Princess Yingyi settled down in the manor of Princess Zhong, it is pretty nice. After he heard the compliment, Luo immediately turned embarrassed. He scratched his head, bashfully exclaiming, It's the master who had given me a pointer. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought of it. The floating forest. 9. It's because you're very smart. Even without your master here, you're able to do it so well, Huang Beiyu honestly complimented. This is her beautiful last move against concubine Qin and concubine Shui. With Princess Yingyi's identity and the evidence from the Bug's bank, she managed to suppress the 2 big mountains, making it impossible for concubine Qin and concubine Shui to reverse their situation. Luo laughed and laughed, but slowly, he couldn't laugh anymore. He said, Master, Princess Beiyu is so pitiful. None of the family members from the Xiao family are good people. She must have suffered a lot of grievances under those people. Master, how does it feel to have the closest person to you betray you? It must be a very sour feeling. She slowly raised her eyes underneath the black cloak and looked at the simple and harmless young boy. Huang Beiyu felt an incomprehensive feeling rise in her heart. He is actually feeling sad for Huang Beiyu. Unexpectedly, Luo, who grew up with love and care, would actually be able to empathize with Huang Beiyu. Luo Luo, it's no use pitying her. If she was strong since the beginning, then she wouldn't have been bullied by others. You are the same. As long as you become strong and powerful, no one will have the ability to hurt you. Otherwise, no matter how much you sympathize or pity her, it won't change a thing. Luo Luo listened to her teachings and firmly nodded his head. He replied, Master, I understand. I will definitely become strong, so can rest assured. Huang Bei Yu slightly lowered her head and smiled. She doesn't know why, but she got too excited and said too much to Luo Luo. The events that had happened today had cast shadows in her heart, making her feel like no one is reliable. Even if that person is her father, didn't he still try to injure her? These kinds of negative thoughts are negatively affecting her. She must quickly dispel these negative thoughts. After leaving the Bug family's mansion, the Iceland spirit bird have also returned. Zhongyi has received the punishment flame, so she doesn't have to worry about him anymore. But now, she is worried about the words Sima Guiyang has said before he had died. While sitting on the back of the Iceland spirit bird, Huang Bei Yu said to Yang, Yang, do you know the identity of those two people? Yang's voice could be heard only after a moment of silence. That woman's summoning spirit beast is the sky-swallowing red python. In this world, there is only one person who has a contract with the sky-swallowing red python. Who? Hong Lian from Guangyaro Hall. Hong Lian. Huang Bei Yu had never heard that name before. Hong Lian isn't a name, it's actually a code name. This is the code name bestowed by the sage of Guangyaro Hall to the strongest person in Guangyaro Hall. The summoning spirit beast of this generation of Hong Lian is the adult sky-swallowing red python. Her original strength is also unfathomable. Huang Bei Yu licked the corner of her mouth. Hong Lian is the strongest person. Did she use her strongest move against Sima Guiyang? Why do they want the beast without boundaries? Yang laughed and said, in the Cart continent, nothing can surpass the secrets hidden in the boundless worlds within the beast without boundaries. All those techniques such as summoning techniques, martial arts, illusions, or refining methods are nothing in comparison to the secrets hidden inside the beast without boundaries. So why wouldn't there be people fighting over it? Humph. This belongs to me. Huang Bei Yu reached out to hold the black jade that is hanging around her neck. This is the biggest trump card she has in her hand. She won't allow anyone to take it away. After a moment of silence, Yang suddenly said, since the people from Guangyaro Hall has already made their move, you should be careful when you go out in the future. They like to target the strongest people from each country. Although Shi Tian's identity is mysterious, with the Iceland spirit bird, she is too eye-catching. So in the future, she should try to be more low-key. Before she truly becomes strong, she doesn't want to encounter an unfair fight against someone who is drastically stronger than her. The Floating Forest, 10. Before she truly becomes strong, she doesn't want to encounter an unfair fight against someone who is drastically stronger than her. She doesn't want to end up like Sima Guiyang, who died in an obscure way. After the yearly competition, Lian College would always choose the winners of the competition to form a small group to learn through experience. The group would be led by one of the stronger teachers in Lian College. They would enter the floating forest to gain some experience. It can be said that the students that enter this group are all experts in their fields. In the forest, it would be the survival of the fittest. Hence, only experts who are rank 4 or above would be able to join the group. This year, Huang Bei Yu defeated Lin Wenyi, who is at the Silver White Warrior rank. She also defeated Lin Zicheng, who is about to enter the Gold Warrior rank. Thus, Huang Bei Yu automatically received the Gold rank without a test. With that rank, she is able to join the team and enter the floating forest. The group this year has around 100 people. But there are only 2 people who came from the Imperial College, Huang Bei Yu and Princess Yingyi. This is the highest number of people that joined the group from the Imperial College ever since it was founded. Because of this, Teacher Guo was very happy. He also invited the Northern Country's prince, Feng Lianyi, who teaches the zither in the college, to lead the group with him. Huang Bei Yu couldn't understand. Feng Lianyi is a teacher that teaches the zither. So how could they allow him to accompany them in such a dangerous journey? Seeing the puzzled expression on Huang Beiyu's face, Princess Yingyi smiled. She explained, Prince Yi's vitality is of the wind attribute. The wind attribute is the gentlest of all the attributes. It has healing effects. However, it's rare for someone to have the wind attribute. Due to this, Principal Kang he would always invite Prince Yi to join the team to enter the floating forest. It turns out that he has the wind attribute. She heard that although people with the wind attribute can heal people, when it comes to its attack powers, it's many times weaker than the other attributes. A 9-star wind attribute expert could only fight a 7-star expert of another attribute and the result would be a tie. But is Feng Lian Yi this weak? His strength right now already gives her a headache. And she still doesn't know whether Feng Lian Yi is a summoner or a warrior. He appears to look gentle and elegant, just like the son of nobility from the imperial capital. He doesn't look like he's strong at all. Since the beginning, Huang Beiyu's gaze has always been on Feng Lian Yi. Feng Lian Yi was talking to teacher Guo in the front. He seemed to have noticed her gaze as he turned around and smiled at her. Huang Beiyu's gaze was calm and indifferent as if she wasn't staring at him at all. Very naturally, she turned her gaze away. Someone became gloomy again. Xiao Zhongqi and Xiao Yun were also selected to join the team this time. This was Xiao Yun's first time being selected to join the team to the floating forest, so she is very excited. However, the matter with concubine Qin cast a shadow in her heart. So no matter what, she is unable to cheer up. Several hundreds of the experts from Lian College gathered around the public square in Lian College. The scene was very lively. With Huang Beiyu intentionally spreading the matters that had happened in Princess Zhong's residence, the news had spread far and wide throughout Linhuai City. Not only did the prince consort, Xiao Yuancheng, and his 2 concubines schemed to steal Princess Zhong's property, the prince consort also set Princess Beiyu's courtyard on fire to kill her. This degree of viciousness really makes the people shocked. Right now, the 2 concubines have been imprisoned in the prison in Princess Zhong's residence. If not for Princess Beiyu being magnanimous, they would have been beaten to death by the rod. Xiao Yuancheng had been admitted to the Justice Department's prison yesterday. The incident was so big that even the emperor got wind of it. The emperor became furious after hearing the news. He had sent out 2 imperial edicts. In the beginning, he wanted Xiao Yuancheng to be immediately beheaded. But after Xiao Qi Yuan pleading the emperor for leniency, Xiao Yuancheng would be beheaded after autumn. With this incident, none of the nobilities dare to have any interaction with the Xiao family. The Floating Forest, 11. With this incident, which nobility in Linhuai City would dare to have any interactions with the Xiao family? The people who were originally on good terms with Xiao Yun are avoiding her in fear. Xiao Yun had never experienced this kind of cold treatment. She and Xiao Zhongqi are like 2 abandoned dogs as they pitifully stand on the side together. They look at the experts who pass by them, smiling and greeting Huang Beiyu. In Lian College, a gold rank expert is considered one of the top experts in the college. So when those people look at Huang Beiyu, their gaze now contain more respect. When Xiao Yun saw that, she clenched her teeth. While beside her, people were gossiping about her. That's her. That is Xiao Yun. She is the daughter of the greedy concubine from Princess Zhong's residence. Just look at her, she doesn't look like a good person either. TSK. Her concubine mother is locked in prison. Yet she still has the heart to attend the team to gain experience in the floating forest. She really is heartless. How can you blame her? Her concubine mother was really mighty before, she acted like she was the main wife. How about now? Now that her backing is gone, she can only rely on herself now. Haha, that's right. She is just the daughter of a concubine, yet she still wants to fly higher. What a joke. They didn't avoid the discussions about her. They deliberately stood close to her, allowing her to hear their conversation to anger her. Xiao Yun clenched her teeth and turned around. She glared at the group of talkative young ladies and said, "Are you done talking? Oh my. Be careful or else she will kill you." Last time, she had killed her servant girl on the street. Her methods are ruthless. She actually dares to be so presumptuous in front of so many people. What do you know? She was never properly educated. Hence, she actually dares to kill people in the middle of the streets. Yet after killing her servant girl, she still has no sense of shame and acted brazenly in front of everyone. She even took off her clothes in order to seduce Xiao Yarrow Wang. So what kind of things can she not do? Those people continuously chattered, yet they didn't appear afraid at all. What are they afraid of? Right now, everyone is waiting for her to slip and fall. If she dares to make a move against them, no one would let her get away with it. When Xiao Yun's angry face paled, Huang Beiyu slowly walked over. She glanced at the group of young aristocratic ladies. When Huang Beiyu walked over, the young aristocratic ladies' attitude suddenly did a 180-degree turn. They immediately smiled at Huang Beiyu and began flattering her. Congratulations, Princess Beiyu, for joining the team this year to gain experience. You are the youngest person in our team this year. You really are a genius. Yeah, you are now representing the Imperial College. Teacher Guo is so happy that he praises you every day. It's no wonder you're from the Imperial lineage. You're a young genius. How can ordinary people compare to you? When the young lady spoke, she glanced at the red-faced Xiao Yun and smiled. I'm also very happy to be able to join the team and gain experience together with everyone, Huang Beiyu said as she smiled. Her noble manner really makes people feel amazed by her. She became famous after the competition. Now she is one of the strong people, and people always respect the strong. After the group of young aristocratic ladies finished flattering her, Huang Beiyu glanced at Xiao Yun. She continued to smile and said, "Second sister, I didn't think you would join the team to gain experience right now." Xiao Yun loudly said, "I was selected based on my strength. So why wouldn't I go?" She really wishes that everyone could hear what she had just said. In the skills competition, she had defeated her opponent and gained the opportunity to join the team to gain experience. Huang Beiyu smiled, "Of course I know that second sister is very powerful. It's just right now, concubine Shui is still locked in prison." The Floating Forest, 12, Huang Beiyu smiled, her eyebrows curled. "Of course I know the second sister is the strongest. It's just that the concubine Shui is still imprisoned in the prison and her body isn't that good. After the second sister goes, probably you won't get back before half a month's time. Without your detailed serving for concubine Shui, the days within the prison isn't that easy to pass by." Xiao Yun's face grew red and slowly turned green and white. She thought back to the incense burner Huang Beiyu placed in the prison and felt unwell in her heart as though a cat was scratching her. Of course, she knew that no one took care of her mother in prison. Xiao Zhonglei, after all, was a man and wasn't mature enough. He wasn't that close to mother, and after mother had suffered from this, who knows how her mother would be like after half a month's torture from the rotten blood pill. However, when she was about to leave today, it was the mother who repeatedly urged her to go to the floating forest for experience in order to increase her strength and not care about anything. As long as she became a powerful person, they will still have hope. What happened with my mother? I naturally had already arranged this before coming out. Plus, there's my brother, Xiao Yun exclaimed in a loud voice. The second sister had already arranged this, then naturally it is the best. Huang Beiyu faintly smiled. When the second sister is done with her experience and goes back home, your strength will increase greatly. Concubine Shui will also have a light on her, of course. Xiao Yun grinned with confidence. She held some confidence over her own strength. After she adventured in the floating forest for experience, her strength will definitely move up another flight of stairs. A couple of young misses by the side looked at each other, lowering their voices. For strength, she didn't even care about her own mother's safety. She obviously was a cruel and unscrupulous person. Xiao Yun was furious and wanted to turn around to yell at them when Principal Kang his clear voice rang. "Prepare to leave now." This voice, which shocked the people's hearts, immediately led the hundreds of masters on the plaza to raise their arms and cheer. Setting off now. The floating forest, their road for the experience. Only the courageous people could step into this dangerous place. The mercenaries and the adventurers' heaven. Floating forest. The warm-blooded cheers resonated above the Lingyang College. Numerous young women's hearts all trembled with excitement due to this arriving adventure. Going out for experience, it wasn't like how the nobles would sit within the horse carriage when they go out for fun. All the summoners called for their spiritual beasts. They all rode on their own and opened the road in front of them. The students within the Imperial College and the refining pharmacists were in the middle, riding the horses. In the end, were the masters of the martial arts. The majestic line headed out from Linhui City, and on the way there, numerous common people all rushed forth to see them. The floating forest was a vast and boundless deep forest. It ran through the entire Kart mainland and deeply rooted within the center. Because magical beasts and godly beasts often appeared as well as all types of unknown dangers, this caused the problem of communicating with each individual country. No one dared to cross through the floating forest by themselves on a horse and a gun. Even if there was a group of masters, it was extremely dangerous. Therefore, many people would rather revolve around the main road and spend more than 10 times the time but would not cross through the floating forest. Within Nanyi country, the outside of the floating forest held the same amount of danger. The misty forest was revolved around by fogs for many years. Once they crossed through the misty forest, they would be able to reach the outside of the floating forest. Towards the young and inexperienced masters, the misty forest was already dangerous enough. This forest was vast too. Often, there were mercenaries and adventurers who ventured in to search for materials and valuable ingredients. Therefore, there was a couple of roads which were comparably safe. Plus, before the ice spirit bird had come here and released a powerful sense of pressure. The floating forest, 13. This led the misty forest to be frozen and a lot of the spiritual beasts to flee into the floating forest. Therefore, the road into the misty forest was much safer and easier. In the front is the Yu Luo Gu. After we pass the Yu Luo Gu, we will be truthfully within the floating forest. Princess Yingyi rode a horse and drove alongside with Huang Beiyu. She was afraid she didn't understand the path, so she patiently explained. Huang Beiyu was quite familiar with this section, but towards the floating forest, she had no understanding of it. Floating light, as the name suggested, because inside the forest, the plants were dense and it hid the sky. For many years, no light was seen that often. Therefore, within the forest, a super low-level spiritual bug named Floating Light appeared. Their body would emit off intense and bright lights which will give light to the dark forest. The rank of floating lights was very low. They don't have an attack attribute. However, if a group of floating lights appeared, there was some danger. These spiritual bugs liked to suck blood. If someone was to be surrounded by a group of floating lights, it would be a little frightening. This was how the floating forest got its name. Inside, the higher-level spiritual beasts could be seen everywhere. Just outside of it, it was very dangerous. As the legend exclaimed, every place, there was either a godly or a wicked beast that occupied their territory. No one could cross a border, otherwise there will be a world-shaking battle. Within the misty forest, they met some spiritual beasts that weren't high in ranks. It was mostly the red and blue bats with high attack attributes that appeared in groups that they had seen. At this time, the professors would divide the students into small groups to attack the spiritual beasts. The professors would stand to one side, watching this. They would only go to save someone when it was life-threatening. Huang Beiyu and Princess Yingyi, as well as Xueqi, were one team. Within the three-people group, their strengths were quite strong. Because Xueqi had the 10th order spiritual red spider and he liked to show off in front of Princess Yingyi, therefore most of the times, it was him who was killing the spiritual beasts. Huang Beiyu symbolically took out a whip and got rid of the spiritual beasts which were acting recklessly. Comparing this, Xueqi and Princess Yingyi were considered to be outstanding. The places that they walked by, there were numerous corpses of bats. Huang Beiyu's strength seemed to be weaker. Saying the truth, the spiritual beasts that they met here have too low of a rank. There was no desire to challenge them. With her strength, she could definitely kill them in one shot. However, that way, she would be standing out. Plus, she needed to leave some chances for Xueqi, this type of tactless and impulsive master, to show off, right? Princess Beiyu. Looks like you don't have that many experiences in the fighting. However, you're lucky and are in the same group as I am. You and Princess don't need to worry. You just need to follow behind me." Shui arrogantly stood on the spider's back and started laughing. Huang Bei Yu coldly stared at him. Giving him some chances had, however, led him to be arrogant. "Look as I play you to death." Young Master Shui strength and experiences are powerful. With you opening the road in front of us, it saved Princess and I quite a bit of time. Speaking of which, these bats are frightening and numerous are. Huang Bei Yu raised her head. She smiled brightly. That exquisite 5 sense organs, in the past, he hadn't noticed that it was that breathtaking. Shui's heart thumped rapidly and suddenly felt regretful that he had broken the promise of marriage. At that time, he had no idea Huang Bei Yu was actually not a useless person. She was so beautiful and the best option for a wife. The Floating Forest, 14. But in the past, he listened to his father's words and missed this girl in vain. Not only that, but he also offended the manner of Princess Zhong. This led to the manner of Anghua Gong to suffer from it afterward. Who knew if this Princess Bei Yu still held some sort of feelings towards him? He pondered over this in his heart and Shui suddenly rose with spirit. "You do not need to be afraid, Princess. Let me go open the road for you guys." When he finished his words, he drove the 10th order red spider and rushed forwards to the front. The blue bats that dared to bump into them as they passed by all died or suffered heavy injuries by the red spider's powerful ray of lightning. Princess Yingyi slightly furrowed her eyebrows. "Bei Yu, how come you keep giving this fool the chance to show off?" Huang Bei Yu smiled. She blinked her eyes, a little childishly. Did Princess ever hear of the saying that the shot hits the bird that pokes its head out first? As she exclaimed this, she already mumbled the words to control a spiritual beast. Through the powerful spiritual mind, she was able to control the red spider. Because the red spider was defeated by her in the past, it conveyed a huge sense of fear to her. The moment it felt her spiritual power, the whole body shook, then quickly hid in Shui's spiritual beast space ring. Shui, who was in combat with a group of blue bats, originally, was full of spirits since the blue bats weren't able to withstand the red spider's rays of lightning. But suddenly, he lost the red spider's aid. Suddenly, Shui was completely exposed under the blue bat's attacks. At first, after he was stunned, Shui was still able to fight against the blue bats based on the 4-star summoner's strength, and he attempted to summon the red spider. However, after he tried many times, that red spider actually broke the connection with him. No matter what he tried, he was unable to communicate with him through the contract. Shui was shocked within his heart and knew that he couldn't keep fighting any longer. He immediately wanted to back away, but those blue bats who had been defeated and beaten by him were not angered. Right now, they saw that he suddenly didn't have the help of the red spider, so they all flocked over. 2 fists are difficult to battle against 4 hands. Although the blue bats were small in size and didn't have a strong attack attribute, they were still the 10th order spiritual beasts. It might be easy to fight against 1 or 2, but it was too scary to fight a group. Shui released a tragic yell and he hugged his head, scurrying here and there. Those vicious blue bats only paid attention to violently attacking him. The blood flowed out and they sucked on the blood with all their might. When the meat fell out, they ate the meat with all their might. What happened here suddenly led the other teams to be stunned. The other teams weren't that arrogant like Shui. They hadn't relied on their strengths to draw too many blue bats over. For the majority, they already got rid of them. Now that they had seen Shui's tragic look, after being stunned, most of them stood to the side to admire this happily. The professors were all shook by this momentarily before they thought of coming over to save him. They basically didn't need to worry about Shui's strength, so they hadn't really paid attention to this side. Who knew such a huge matter would have occurred? The blue bats were small in size, but it wasn't a joke when they attacked as a group. Perhaps, there might only be a pile of bones left momentarily. A couple of professors rushed over together. The summoners and masters of martial arts all made a move at the same time and the group of blue bats was eliminated. They had saved Shui, who was covered in blood due to the bites. "Prince Yi, please." A professor hurriedly requested for Feng Lian Yi's presence. Feng Lianyi stared at Xueche, who was on the ground and unconscious. He raised his eyes and looked meaningfully at Huang Beiyu. Then, he raised his two hands and a trace of wind-attributed aura that could be seen by human eyes slowly dispersed in his hands. The wind-attributed transformed into a transparent protective screen, enveloping Xueche. Godly young beast, 1. He just simpled moved his hands and the wind-attributed aura used to heal people increasingly flowed into Xueche's body. Such beautiful and confident moves, faintly performed as though running water, paired with the body of pure white clothes. Who knew how many women's faces turned red and their hearts moved by this? This was the first time Huang Beiyu had seen Feng Lianyi used his aura. Besides believing his moves to be beautiful, she was secretly touched with this type of aura able to heal injuries. When she practiced asceticism of the beast without boundaries amulet methods, she was able to transfer the aura within earth and heaven as she wished to. When the time came, she should be able to use the wind attribute as well. This type of aura that healed injuries was necessary regardless of the time. Feng Lianyi slowly placed away from his wind-attributed aura after he peered at Xueche's injury, which gradually healed and stopped bleeding. He slightly coughed, a little weak. Troubling Prince Yi. Elder Nangong, who was in charge of bringing the team this time, cupped his fist, thanking him. Although the 9th Prince of Bei Yaro country was only a hostage, his personality and power led everyone to be convinced in the heart. No worries, bring him to rest. Feng Lianyi faintly exclaimed. He hadn't revealed an arrogant expression which led others to admire him more. Although his power was special, it seemed like he wasn't able to use large amounts at one time. What the elders meant was that unless they faced a situation with no alternatives, then they will try their best to not use Feng Lianyi's power. This was unexpected. Who knew that within the misty forest, there would have occurred such a huge injury when facing low attack-attributed spiritual beasts? Right now, Xueche was unable to go to the floating forest with them. It was convenient to bring him out since they hadn't been in for a long time. A couple of elders told people to bring Xueche out, then they brought the groups together and continued moving forward. When they finally reached the outside of the floating forest, they then camped there and went to rest. This type of rule to experience had been passed down by Lian College for many years. Therefore, all the work needed to do, such as lighting a fire, cooking, and setting up camps, were all distributed regularly amongst the people. Huang Beiyu and Princess Beiyu finished setting up the camps, then she wanted to go out herself. She first wanted to see what it's like around the floating forest. She was unsure if she was able to find a couple of ingredients needed to refine cleansing bone marrow pill outside the floating forest. In order to prevent the students from being curious and going out to the floating forest by themselves, around the camps, there were a couple of professors who took returns in patrolling. Huang Beiyu didn't want to stir up trouble, so she stood from afar, looking for a while. At this time, no one knew what happened within the floating forest, but suddenly a burst of earthquake-like footsteps along with many spiritual beasts' frightened howls rang. Everyone who was originally busy all stopped their actions. They all raised their heads, looking at the endless darkness. From time to time, there were some floating lights sparkling within the deep forest. What happened? It felt as though many spiritual beasts were rushing here. Plus, they were all at least above the 10th order. Elder Nan Gong hurriedly walked out from the tent and squinted his eyes, looking. Did the people who went make inquiries in the front come back yet? Elder, none of them is back. A young professor anxiously replied, Elder, the situation doesn't seem right. Let the students leave first. Elder Nan Gong also had the intentions of doing so. This group of students was Lian College's recent years of elites. They couldn't afford to lose them. Godly young beast, 2. He wanted to command the people when suddenly a group of people on horses hurried out from the floating forest. Within the group of people, there was summoners and warriors. They seemed to be a powerful squad of an army. Damn. Boss, there are a lot of bastards here. A loud and rough voice rang from afar. This led the group of elites from Lian College to be unhappy. The army seemed to be calmer after they ran out of the floating forest. A huge ape walked over, shaking the earth while doing so. It confronted the people from Lian College outside of the floating forest. On the huge ape's shoulders, there was an arrogant man with a long beard sitting on top. A pair of bell-like eyes swept across the students. In the end, his eyes landed on Elder Nangong. "You guys are people from Nanyi country?" The moment he opened his mouth, it was filled with a disdainful tone. "They're just a group of small children. There are probably only a couple of masters, as it seemed like. They probably came to Nanyi country's college to train." The group of students looked to be a source of easy profit. Elder Nangong walked out. Nanyi country was a big country, so naturally, it couldn't lose its face. Therefore, he cupped his fist, stating, "We are the people of Nanyi country's Lian College. Maybe I ask who your team is?" "Humph. Lian College? I never heard of this before." That man with a long beard arrogantly replied, "We are Dongli country's first army, the Four Oceans Army. We crossed from the east to the floating forest." Indeed, the Four Oceans Army held some reputation on the mainland. On the Kart mainland, it could also be considered a top-ranked army. Their leader wasn't a summoner but rather a martial arts master that legend had entered the war god rank. The long-bearded man who drove the ape probably isn't the leader. What led Elder Nangong and the others to be shocked was not the Four Oceans Army's reputation but rather that the long-bearded man explained that they had crossed from the east over to the floating forest. Dangers surrounded the floating forest and different types of spiritual beasts appeared out of nowhere. Even if they crossed over from the east, they needed to be very powerful. There were only about 30-something people within the army the long-bearded man led. Although each one of them was tall, muscular, and all-powerful people who had experienced many battles, could they really cross the floating forest? "Elder, these people don't seem to be friendly." A young professor came over, exclaiming this in a low voice. Elder Nangong held a gloomy face, lowly yelling, "Don't say nonsense. As long as they don't be aggressive to us then it's fine." As he finished his words, Elder Nangong raised his head, smiling. "Since your group had crossed over from the floating forest, can you tell us what happens within the forest?" The sound of the spiritual beasts running closer continued and they detected danger. "Humph. This is the rebellion of the spiritual beast. You guys dare to barge into the floating forest and not knowing this? The people of Nanyi country are so funny." Princess Yingyi furrowed his eyebrows. She placed her hand on the sword, incomparably angry within her heart. The moment these people opened their mouths, they talked about Nanyi country in disdain. How could she do nothing being the princess? "Princess." Huang Bei Yu held onto her hand, softly shaking her head. She lowered her voice, "Don't rush. Later on, we will teach them a good lesson." Now Elder Nangong needed to lead the students and evacuate. The spiritual beast's rebellion seemed to be hard to deal with. It was not a good time to stay. Elder Nangong's face wasn't looking good. The Four Oceans Army was too arrogant. Spiritual beasts' rebellion? The normal spiritual beasts' rebellion would crazily attack one another within a certain area. How was it like this where they seemed to be rushing in one direction to escape? Godly Young Beast, 3. However, they don't have the time to think about these things. Their priority should be to let the students escape first. Therefore, Elder Nangong didn't bother about the 4C mercenaries' attitude. He allowed the teachers to quickly withdraw their students from the area. The big bearded man felt that the group of students in front of him were all fat sheep. So the moment his eyes landed on them, he had already decided that he absolutely would not let them go. He waved his hand to beckon his people to follow them. The students from Lian College were walking on the left side of a small brook as they returned back to the Falling Moon Valley camp. On the other side of the brook, the 4C mercenary were led by the big bearded man as they followed the students. When they reached their camp, it was already dark. After they finished eating their dinner, the students gathered at the center of the camp. They quietly sat in a circle as they waited for the clamoring of the beast to calm down. On the other side of the brook, inside the 4C mercenaries' camp, the big bearded man was gnawing at a fat rabbit leg. His mouth was extremely oily. An underlying suddenly spoke out and asked, "Boss Yuan, that group of people are from Nanyi country's #1 college, Lian College. I'm afraid that they won't be easy to provoke. Are you really going to rob them? The man who had just spoken was quite fair-looking. He looked particularly weak and thin amongst the group of men. Boss Yuan bit down on a large piece of rabbit meat. As he chewed the meat, he said, "Luo Chun, could it be that you're afraid? We already had run amok through the floating forest. So how could we be afraid of just mere students?" He spits out oil and water as he spoke, spraying it everywhere. Luo Chun replied, "This time because the mythological beast on the east side of the floating forest became violent, the surrounding beasts had escaped. The only reason we safely escaped is that we had run and hidden away." What nonsense. Boss Yuan slapped the rabbit leg on the bonfire. This caused sparks of fire to fly in all directions. The surrounding people were frightened and immediately fled away. On the contrary, Luo Chun remained calm. He simply wrinkled his brows. "Luo Chun, how could you think this way? As we passed through the floating forest, we had also hunted down a few beasts. Hunting down spiritual beasts isn't based on luck." Boss Yuan muttered, "Luo Chun, you believe that we don't have any strength. Is that right? You think that we're all just weaklings? Humph. If your uncle hasn't asked me to take care of you, this daddy wouldn't have brought you here to gain some experience. You're just a pretty boy who is useless at everything." Luo Chun became angry. "Stop bringing my uncle up. If you lot really have any abilities, then stop trying to rob that group of students. Why don't you go to the floating forest and subdue that mythological beast?" Boss Yuan suddenly stood up. He pointed the rabbit feet at him and said, "What a good boy. When have I ever needed you to criticize how I do things? This daddy likes to rob. So what of it? There are pretty girls in that group of students. This daddy wants to snatch a few and have a good time. What can you do about it?" Luo Chun angrily shouted, "Humph! How despicable and shameless. You really ruin the reputation of the 4C Mercenary Corps." His fair and white skin flushed red in anger. "Ha ha ha ha." Boss Yuan raised his head and laughed. "Luo Chun, do you really think that the 4C Mercenary is still the #1 mercenary group of Dongli country? Your uncle, that old man, is already dying. Let's split our things and disperse. My uncle will get better. Don't be proud of yourself." Luo Chun threw those resentful words at him. He didn't want to stay with a group of cowards. He was spitting with anger as he walked outside. When the guard outside saw him, he enthusiastically greeted him, "Master Luo Chun, there is roasted rabbit meat. Do you want a piece?" Luo Chun politely shook his head and walked to the side. The Godly Beast. 4. The Luo family was considered one of the top families in the northern country. The Luo family's 4C's mercenary group was well known throughout the Kart continent for its strength and power. Due to this, the Luo family was very well respected. But a month ago, the leader of the 4C's mercenary group, his uncle, had met Hong Lian from Guangyaro Hall. Hong Lian had challenged his uncle to a fight and his uncle had lost. Although his uncle managed to survive the fight, he was severely injured. When the people from the 4C's mercenary group heard that their leader was injured, a part of the mercenary group became restless and tried to plot a rebellion. He was one of the few remaining direct descendants of the Luo family, so Uncle Luo Ju wanted to protect him. So his uncle made Boss Yuan take him and leave. But Boss Yuan wasn't a good person. Even though he does have some goodwill towards the Luo family, he was a shameless and vulgar person. Whenever he met a smaller mercenary group or team, he would always think of a way to rob them. When he robbed those people, he would always use the name of the 4C's mercenary group to intimidate them. He really is shameless. "I see, so you were driven out by a godly beast," a clear but ice-cold voice rang out behind them. The icy voice contained a hint of ridicule directed towards him. "Who's there?" Luo Chen immediately turned around to see who it was. But he was only able to catch a sight of a petite dark shadow flashing by him from the rear side of the tent. He couldn't clearly see who it was before the shadow had already disappeared. "Young Master Luo Chen, did something happen?" One of the mercenaries who was patrolling nearby had heard his voice and ran over to him. "No, it's nothing." Luo Chen was also uncertain. Was the shadow from before a figment of his imagination? That shadow had moved so quickly, it was gone in a flash. Young Master Luo Chen must be tired. It's best if you return to the camp and rest. Tonight, Boss Yuan wants us to rob the students that we had encountered earlier. The mercenary sounded eager and excited to rob the students. Luo Chen frowned in disgust. He was only a guest in this small mercenary group, so it wasn't his place to speak too much or criticize their actions. The group of people from Lian College weren't easy to deal with. For the academy to dare bring such a large group of students out, they must have many strong teachers protecting them. Boss Yuan won't be able to take advantage of them. They will hit a wall if they try to rob the student from Lian College. However, once they offended the people from Nanyi country, there will be a lot of trouble for the Four Seas mercenary group. Huang Beiyu had easily bypassed the patrolling mercenary guards. It was like a children's play for her to bypass their ancient style of patrolling around the area. After she leisurely walked around the small river for some time, Huang Beiyu returned to the camp. Each tent had about 10 people resting inside it. However, Princess Ingye's treatment was different. She is a princess with an honorable status, so she naturally can't be crowded into a tent with 9 other people to prevent any accidents. Because Princess Ingye had a good relationship with Princess Beiyu, she had asked Huang Beiyu to live with her. Huang Beiyu opened the door of the tent and walked in. Inside the tent, she saw Feng Lian dressed in snow-white clothes, chatting with the Princess Ingye as he slowly drank his tea. "Beiyu, you're back." Princess Ingye looked at her and smiled. "Didn't you say you were going out for a walk? Why did you take so long?" Feng Lian's pair of purple eyes was also staring at her. Huang Beiyu calmly replied, "I walked along the river for a while. But I unconsciously walked too far. So, it took me a while to return." Feng Lian asked with a smile, "There are mercenaries from the Four Seas mercenary group patrolling on the opposite side of the river. Isn't Princess Beiyu afraid they might attack you since you're alone?" On the surface, it seemed that he had said those words out of concern. However, he was secretly actually taunting her because he knew that she had lied to Princess Ingye. Walked along the river? If she could behave herself like this, the world might be much more peaceful. Since I have come back safely, it means that Prince Yi's worry is unnecessary. Huang Beiyu looked at the smiling purple eyes of Feng Lian and said expressionlessly, "Sure. Princess Beiyu is so clever that can always turn danger into safety. There's no need to worry." Huang Beiyu looked to him coldly. If this guy continued to speak such ironically, she would kill him. "Since it's midnight, I'm afraid that it will bring bad impact if Prince Yi stays in the tent of Princess Ingye. So, please go back," said Huang Beiyu coldly. "Beiyu," said Princess Ingye. "Prince Yi and Master Yu Wen are sent by Elder Nangong to protect us. The elder said that the mercenaries across the river don't look like good people. In order to prevent problems, powerful teachers are sent to every tent and protect the students. This was the order of Elder Nangong, which was announced after Beiyu had went out." Huang Beiyu looked at the young man who was next to Feng Lian. She had a better impression of this person named Yu Wen Di than Feng Lian. The first time she saw him was in the outside of Hostage's palace. He was righteous, faithful and honest. Later in the challenge at Lian College, the groom who was bribed by Lin Wani was also caught by him. Huang Beiyu was a person who would remember even a little bit of kindness in heart, and she was especially respectful to those integrate people. "I see. Then, sorry to trouble Master Yu Wen." Huang Beiyu turned directly, cupped her fist and bent over to Yu Wen Di, completely ignoring Feng Lian. "I'm flattered, Her Royal Highness. This is what I ought to do." Yu Wen Di also cupped his fist and bent over, although not knowing why Princess Beiyu only thanked him yet ignored his master. But since Princess Beiyu had said these words, he couldn't ignore. Feng Lian looked at Huang Beiyu, with a slight yet bigger smile. It seemed that he was more interested. Princess Ingye looked back and forth between Huang Beiyu and Feng Lian helplessly. Usually, Beiyu was a polite person, but she seemed to be some kind of hostile to Prince Yi. Fortunately, Prince Yi didn't care. Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. It seems that no one can sleep tonight in order to prevent the mercenaries from harassing. Princess Ingye frowned and said. Wen Di quickly replied, I will be on guard outside for the whole night, so that you can take a good rest, Her Royal Highness. Princess Ingye looked up and smiled sweetly at him. For whole night? How hard it is. Let me keep guard with Master Yu Wen by turns. Huang Beiyu looked up and said, already with a step out. I will be on guard till midnight. You all can take a rest. As Feng Lianyi was in the tent, she didn't want to stay here. Beiyu. Princess Ingye stood up and wanted to go after her. How could a girl keep guard at midnight? Princess Ingye, I suggest that we divide into 2 groups and be on guard before and after midnight by turns, Feng Lianyi said with a smile. I will be with Princess Beiyu before midnight. Please take a good rest trustingly. Princess Ingye blushed. He said that he would guard outside and let her rest assured. With him standing outside, she would surely feel relieved. But, Brother Yi, Beiyu is actually very nice to people. She is not that cold or rude. Please don't mind. Feng Lianyi's lips aroused slightly and smiled. I know. Please go to rest, Princess. Di, you stay at the door, and don't sleep too deep. Yes. Wen Di bowed and replied. Feng Lianyi went out. Outside the tent, the night wind blew, and the fire in the brazier was crackling. Huang Beiyu was sitting on the ground outside the mat curtain with arms crossed. Her petite body was quite imposing, as if she was very used to the guard things. He sat down on the other side of the curtain, turned his head, looked at her and smiled. Did I make you angry? Huang Beiyu didn't look at him, but coldly said, Prince Yi is over self-estimated. There are not many people who can make me angry. After listening to this, Feng Lianyi's smile deepened. His purple eyes were sparkling, and even the smile had spread into the eyes. Although she did not admit it, she was angry. Where did you go? Feng Lianyi asked with a smile. Do I need to report to you? Huang Beiyu coldly responded. Feng Lianyi touched his nose, smiled and said, although it is not necessary, I am very curious. Besides, as an ally, I should ask. Ally? Huang Beiyu turned to look at him. She slowly narrowed her black eyes with some sly gleam flashing inside. Prince Yi, since we are allies, what's your occupation? It seems that you have not told me. It's because you never asked. Feng Lianyi looked up. The fire in the brazier shone into his eyes, lightening the purple eyes so bright. Huang Beiyu looked at it shockedly. After a moment, she came to mind, coughed and took her eyes off, and said dryly, I've asked now. Do you want to hear the truth, or lie? Crap. Huang Beiyu said angrily. If I want to hear the lie, why should I ask you? You're right, Feng Lianyi said with a smile. I am the summoner, wind attribute. What is your summoning spirit beast? Huang Beiyu asked again. As expected, he wasn't as simple as he seemed at all. A hidden summoner. Very powerful. Feng Lianyi looked up at the starry sky. There are too many people. I will show you next time. Huang Beiyu snorted. But suddenly a smile climbed onto her cheek. Few people know the secret that you are the summoner. Yes. You are the third to know. Huang Beiyu licked her lips, and said some treacherously, aren't you afraid that I will let out your secret? Feng Lianyi looked at her and was slightly surprised. Obviously, he did not expect that she would suddenly come up with a threat. Generally speaking, masters should be bright and upright. You won't, he said at a bit uncertain tone. He really didn't know much about this little girl. Well, it depends on your performance. Huang Beiyu already had a plan in mind. Just now, outside the tent of the Four Seas mercenary group, she heard the conversation between Boss Yuan and his men. She knew that spiritual beast's weird movements today were not riots at all, but because of a mythological beast outside the floating forest. Although she didn't know how that mythological beast came to the periphery of the floating forest, this now or never opportunity could not be met every day. In the past, if you wanted to meet a mythological beast, you must not only have super strength, but also have enough luck. This time, wasn't it a good luck? The mythological beast came to the periphery and just scared away the spiritual beasts nearby. It must be much easier to enter the floating forest at this moment than usual. If lucky, she could still see the mythological beast. If more lucky, she might be able to tame the mythological beast. If she had a mythological beast, then that Hong Lian of Guangyaro Hall would not necessarily be such a big threat to her. Hong Lian had a mythological beast. If she also had one, added with a little trick, it would not be difficult to kill Hong Lian. However, taming a mythological beast was just a good assumption. Huang Beiyu dared not to be careless. Although she was strong enough to tame Ice Spirit Bird using beast without boundaries, to tame a mythological beast was hard to say. Moreover, she didn't know the level of the mythological beast inside. This time, her main purpose of entering the floating forest was to find the 3 medicinal ingredients of refining cleansing bone marrow pill as soon as possible. Other things were just by the way. She planned in mind, then looked at Feng Lianyi. He looked like a slightly panicked and feared. She smiled and said, "Prince, you must be powerful. Let's sneak into the floating forest." Feng Lianyi frowned. "You are too bold. It is the riot period of spiritual beasts. It is the most ferocious moment of all spiritual beasts. If you go in now, aren't you looking for death? I don't believe that you also think it's a riot of spiritual beast." Huang Beiyu said, "To tell you the truth, it's the safest time for us to go in now, with no worry about being attacked by high-level spiritual beasts at all." "How do you know that?" Feng Lianyi squinted slightly. "As an ally, I have told you my secret. You still don't want to tell me?" Huang Beiyu raised her hand and pointed back, mysteriously said, "The people over there told me that there is a mythological beast outside the floating forest, so the spiritual beasts are scared and are running away." Mythological beast? Even though Feng Lianyi was calm, he still could not help but slightly gasped. A mythological beast outside the floating forest. What did it mean? "So, do you want to go and see with me? Do I have a choice?" Feng Lianyi smiled wryly. She had said that if he didn't cooperate, she would let his secret out. So if he didn't go, probably everyone in Nanyi country would know his secret tomorrow. He didn't doubt that she would not do as what she said. Huang Beiyu smiled. She was just asking. How could she allow Feng Lianyi decide whether to go or not? If she, an outcomer, entered the floating forest without a person more familiar with the environment, that would be too dangerous. Powerful as she was, Huang Beiyu was not foolhardy. Everything she did must be through careful consideration, otherwise it would be too late to regret. Now that having already planned to go, of course they couldn't wait anymore. This kind of thing, over time, would be known by someone else somehow. By that time, people would flock in and it would not be fun. Huang Beiyu turned and added a layer of vitality restriction on the outside of the tent. Feng Lianyi saw it and raised his eyebrows slightly. She knew how to add vitality restriction. Was she a summoner as well? "Let's go," Huang Beiyu said, while having already stepped in front of him, disappearing behind the tent like a cat. Feng Lianyi followed up. They stopped at the junction of misty forest and floating forest. It had been several hours, but they could still hear the sound of the spiritual beasts fleeing and neighing in the forest. Many spiritual beasts had fled to misty forest. Be careful. Try not to use vitality after you go in the forest. Be careful. Try not to use vitality after you go in. Those floating lights are blind and they attack by sensing the fluctuation of vitality, Feng Lianyi whispered. No wonder even a super master dares not rush into the floating forest. If not use vitality, it will be troublesome when encountering a spiritual beast, Huang Beiyu said. However, she didn't need to be concerned with that for the time being. She was not able to condense vitality herself and there was no vitality fluctuation on her body. So she didn't have to worry about those floating lights for the moment. If you have no problem, just go in. Huang Beiyu asked faintly. Feng Lianyi smiled and walked ahead of her. On walking into the dark floating forest, the temperature dropped immediately. Because of the floating lights, even though it was dark, they could walk stably with no need to worry about the situation under feet. It was very quiet around. They too walked very carefully in tandem. While walking, there were sounds of spiritual beasts around coming from time to time. But at this moment, Those spiritual beasts couldn't spare attention to attack humans who broke in but only thought about fleeing for their own lives. Having avoided the fleeing spiritual beast groups several times, they could now gradually feel the pressure from the mythological beast in the front. However, what surprised them was that the pressure was not as strong as it was supposed to be. Instead, it was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. But even if it was not strong, they could feel the pressing evil spirit from the exuberant pressure. No wonder the spiritual beasts were escaping. Even though the mythological beast couldn't emit strong pressure, its inherent evil spirit was strong enough to scare them away. Huang Beiyu couldn't wait to see what kind of mythological beast it was. Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Wait. She was just going ahead when Feng Lian suddenly raised his hand and whispered. Huang Beiyu thought that there were some other strong spiritual beasts, so she pricked up her ears and listened carefully, but heard nothing. She looked up at Feng Lian, only saw him wave at her, then take a turn and go to another place. Hey! Huang Beiyu whispered, but he didn't hear. So she could only keep up. After 10 minutes walking, there were more and more floating lights ahead, making it brighter and brighter. The light was not glaring. It was very soft, but very cold, making their hairs on back stand straight out. But behind these floating lights, there was a small pool. The ripping water was more dreamlike under the light of these floating lights. In the pool, there were several single-petal 7-color lotus flowers. The 7-color single-petal lotus. Huang Beiyu walked up quickly, and found that it was really one of the medicinal ingredients she was looking for to refine the cleansing bone marrow pill, the water attribute 7-color single-petal lotus. Feng Lian whispered, "It's so lucky that the guardian spiritual beast here has been scared away by the mythological beast. Otherwise, it will take some effort to deal with the guardian spiritual beast." How do you know that there are 7-color single-petal lotus here? Huang Beiyu was overjoyed. Knowing that there was no danger in the pool, she strode down. The shallow water only reached her knees. She picked off all the 7-color single-petal lotus and placed them in the space ring. As the 7-color single-petal lotus were picked off, the floating lights above the pool seemed to feel something and slowly moved. A few floating lights floated down and slowly turned from side to side around Huang Beiyu. These floating lights were in long shape with dragon-like horns on their flat heads. These floating lights were in long shape with dragon-like horns on their flat heads. Behind the horn was a long soft, fin-like thing. Their thin bodies were crystal clear, naturally emitting the lights. If not knowing that they were ferocious spiritual beasts, you must feel that this creature was very beautiful. Huang Beiyu calmed down and looked at Feng Lian. Feng Lian made a squeaking action, then turned his wrist, and took a guqin from the space ring. He flipped the white clothes, sat down on the floor, and gently plucked the strings, soft and beautiful sound flowing out. The gentle sound was so smooth as if slowly drifting out like flowing clouds from his fingertips, high and low, far and near. Magically, those floating lights, on hearing the music, all stopped for a moment at the same time, and then left Huang Beiyu. They slowly moved to Feng Lian and began to spin around him as if there were melodies flowing. The floating lights were intoxicated in the music. Gradually, they began to dance in the dim space, bringing breezes. Feng Lian was playing the guqin with head down while the white clothes were slightly lifted by the breeze. The bright light flickered and faded in his purple eyes. His enchanting and delicate face was so unreal among the dancing floating lights. For a while, the music was sounding. The wind was blowing. The flowing lights were dancing. Huang Beiyu stared so intently with heart touched by the music that she even forgot the dangerous situation for a moment. Many years later, when thinking of this scene again, she still feels unreal, like a dream, but the best dream ever. Feng Lian looked up at her. He was also stunned when seeing her looking straight at himself. Unconsciously, he made a few mistakes while playing the guqin. On hearing the messy sound, the floating lights seemed to react to it all at once. After a moment of silence, the long fin-like thing on their bodies suddenly shook, making a noisy sound. Then they suddenly turned toward him and attacked. "Come on!" Feng Lian put away the guqin and immediately grabbed Huang Beiyue's hand to pull her out of the pool. Then he waved his sleeves, and countless condensed wind vitality flew out like sharp blades. The floating lights catching up were all hit by the wind blades to ground, glistening liquid flowing out from their bodies. After several floating lights had died, the follows immediately caught up, one after another, endlessly. Huang Beiyu snorted. She hated this kind of small but numerous things, which were more difficult to deal with than the fierce spiritual beasts. Now that there were not many of them, why not solve them all at once? Just after the thoughts, Feng Lian held her waist and suddenly took her into his arms. Then he turned around and hid into a dark tree hole. The tree hole was not big, some kind narrow. She almost curled up in his arms so that they two could barely be accommodated. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates. Better experience please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Huang Beiyu gritted her teeth and said, "What are you doing? Don't make vitality fluctuate. Those floating lights are very sensitive. If you release a lot of vitality, they will continue to chase you by the smell. That will be very troublesome." Feng Lian whispered. Huang Beiyu frowned. But although she was not willing, she knew that floating lights were not easy to deal with. But the two were hiding in such a narrow place, it was a bit weird. She didn't know which spiritual beast had lived in this tree hole before, but it was wet and slippery, with cold water drops dripping from above and falling into the neckline of her clothes. A cold chill came into her. "Don't be afraid. They can't find us." Feng Lian softened his voice, and tightened the hand on her waist slightly. "Who is afraid?" Huang Beiyue's cold voice sounded. "Put your hand away." Feng Lian froze a moment. He slowly moved his hand away, coughed in the darkness and said, "Sorry, I didn't notice that the notes were wrong." If the notes hadn't been wrong, those floating lights would have been smoothly calmed and then taken to other places. Thinking of what happened just now, Huang Beiyu showed a rare uneasy blush on her face. Thanks to the darkness, Feng Lian could not see it. Hell, this was not what girlish or romantic heart of Huang Beiyu. She just felt that, anyway, she had been a killer for many years and had seen all kinds of people. There were so many people more enchanting, more attractive and more gentle than him. How beautiful the superstar Su Li was, and the famous Prince Janya. Which one was worse than him? She did not even blink her eyes when she saw these people. But strangely, on looking at him just now, she couldn't move her eyes. It was really inexplicable. Thinking of these, Huang Beiyu coldly said, "If you are not capable, then don't do it." Feng Lian looked down at her in the darkness as he smiled bitterly, and said to himself in heart, he had never made any mistake before this time. It was just. They two hid in the tree hole silently and embarrassingly for a while. The noisy sound outside was calming down. They waited for another 2 minutes before Huang Beiyu first went out. Those floating lights were quietly floating above the dark forest in groups. Their bright lights were extremely weird in the silent dark forest. "Let's go," Huang Beiyu said to Feng Lian and walked forward. One of the 3 medicinal ingredients needed to refine the cleansing bone marrow pill had been found. The remaining 2 might need some time. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates. Better experience please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. There is a kind of earth attribute earth spirit plant growing in the soil. It is hard to find, but the place where the earth spirit plant grows, the soil will emit aroma, and all spiritual beasts like to move around. The low-level spiritual beasts do not have spirituality. They will leave a lot of saliva around the land where the earth spirit plant grows. If you see a place with a lot of saliva, you can pay attention to it. Feng Lian said to her as he walked. Huang Beiyu nodded and began to pay close attention to the surrounding soil. However, at this time, in the forest in front, there was a earthquake-like shaking, making them wobble. Several spiritual beasts made a heartbreaking scream, then it went silent. Huang Beiyu turned to look at Feng Lian. Even if she didn't say anything, both of them understood at the same time. That mythological beast must be in front. They too immediately rushed forward and ran toward the direction of shaking as quickly as possible. The more forward they moved, the more floating lights there were and the more radiant the lights were. A burning power was gradually approaching meanwhile. AWWWW, the violent roar sounded a little weak. After one low screaming, there were only heavy gasps. A jet of flames burst out from the front, and immediately burned the surrounding woods, making the floating lights scattering and fleeing. Huang Beiyu escaped from a flame and hid behind a strong tree. She looked forward and, suddenly, was shocked by the sight. A huge golden tiger was lying on a pile of blue-green vines. On her back there were 4 pairs of golden wings with beautiful and dazzling coat color. The pressure of the mythological beast formed a light gold barrier around her. With such strong evil spiritual power in the barrier, absolutely no spiritual beast dared to approach. The golden tiger looked a little weak, with half-squinting golden eyes particularly full of sadness and pain. She looked at her stomach from time to time and then made a pitiful whimper. The blue-green vines wrapped half of her body. Out of the pile of bright green leaves, there emitted the earth attribute vitality, which was constantly absorbed into the body by golden tiger. With the nourishment of those vitality, she roared again, struggling painfully and rolling among the vines. Feng Lian followed up and stood behind Huang Beiyu, whispering, "What happened to her? Is she wounded?" "No, she is giving birth," Huang Beiyu said calmly. Males just had no concept about this kind of thing. On hearing giving birth, Feng Lian coughed unnaturally. He secretly admired the little girl. At such a young age, she knew everything. Huang Beiyu said slowly, "She is having a dystocia. I never thought that mythological beasts would have dystocia as well. It seems that she is exhausted. If she can't give birth, she will die with the baby. What should we do?" Huang Beiyu glanced at him. "You want to help?" Feng Lian smiled with purple eyes glittering. Although mythological beasts are fierce and noble, they are smarter than ordinary spiritual beasts, and they are also grateful. If you help him, he will help you naturally. I think so too, Huang Beiyu said directly. She wanted to help that golden tiger, and also hoped to get help from the mythological beast. At least, help her find the other 2 medicinal ingredients to refine the cleansing bone marrow pill. Feng Lian smiled and said, despite the thought, "Can you really help? She is very irritable now, and you can't break that barrier." "Just try it," Huang Beiyu said. On second thought, she asked, "The sound of your guqin. It has a pacifying effect on spiritual beasts, doesn't it? Shouldn't it work for mythological beasts, either? I've never tried before." "Then let's try it now." After that, she walked out from behind the big tree. Feng Lian immediately took out the guqin, put it on his lap and played it slowly. Hearing the sound, the golden tiger immediately raised her head and widened her half-squinting eyes. The strong anger in her golden pupils seemed to be substantive. She angrily roared at the intruder and fiercely showed her teeth. Huang Beiyu walked to the barrier without panic. Her black eyes encountered with the pair of golden eyes. But she didn't shrink back at all facing the powerful golden eyes. Golden Tiger was stunned and suddenly said, "Little girl, are you here to die?" The loud and powerful voice was like a strong wind, making the surrounding air shaking violently in an instant. Huang Beiyu also shook at her feet for a moment. She tried to stand still and said to herself in mind, no wonder it was called mythological beast. Only its voice could produce such powerful force. However, she was not a person who would retreat easily. Clenching beast without boundaries tightly in hand, she took a quick step aside to avoid the shock wave from the golden tiger's voice. Even though she had moved so fast, the strong wind still scratched her neck, leaving a thin bloodstain. The golden tiger, who was in childbirth, was particularly grumpy, and would never show mercy to any creature who dared to approach her. Seeing such fast movement of Huang Beiyu, the golden eyes of the golden tiger suddenly froze. A golden light shot out so quickly that it made a violent sound in the air. "Be careful!" Feng Lian shouted behind. The sound of Guqin suddenly soared. He waved his sleeves, and the tumbling wind elements rushed like a huge wave, hitting the golden light from the eyes of the golden tiger. Bang! The strong impact formed a huge cyclone in the air. It was glued for a long time before heading straight to the clouds, even breaking the dense trees covering the sky. The rest of the cyclone swept around like a hurricane, breaking several trunks. When the hurricane stopped, Feng Lian took a look around, but he did not see Huang Beiyu. Suddenly feeling nervous, Feng Lian stood up. "Don't stop." Suddenly there was a cold voice overhead. The light emitted by floating lights was suddenly obscured. A huge mythical bird flew above, immediately radiating icy air and dispelling the muggy heat around. On the back of the mythical bird, a girl with long red hair stood agilely, holding a snow-white ice feather in hand. She looked back gently, showing deep and cold dark eyes. This was Shi Tian's ice spirit bird. And that was the most prestigious red-haired which recently, the mysterious 9-star summoner who controlled one of the 5 super spiritual beasts, Shi Tian. Shocked for a moment, Feng Lian smiled lightly. This girl was too unexpected. 12 years old. 9-star summoner. Ice spirit bird owner. She was a real genius totally over Prince John Yi. Why had she been treated as a crap for so many years? Xiao family were really as blind as a group of bats. "I'm counting on you." After seeing her strong identity, Feng Lian was not worried anymore. Though not a mythological beast, Ice Spirit Bird was a super spiritual beast. Therefore, there was no need to worry too much about facing an overly weak mythological beast in childbirth. Huang Beiyu nodded her head. She waved the ice feather in her hand. Gales of frozen air mixed in black air violently rushed to the light gold barrier around the golden tiger like reversed rivers. The golden tiger roared suddenly. She stood up with her weak body. A flame burst out from her mouth in an instant. Huang Beiyu did not intend to clash with a mythological beast face on face. She immediately drove the ice spirit bird higher. At the same time, the light gold barrier was suddenly broken into pieces and fell down because of her attack. Damn human. The golden tiger was furious totally. How could the barrier of a mythological beast be broken by a simple human summoner? She was so angry that flames burst out suddenly from her golden body. The flames were burning more and more vigorously and finally turned golden in color. The mythological beast in a violent rage put her sharp claws forward and scratched. Golden flames flew out all at once from her body. Huang Beiyu immediately felt a tremendous pressure, like a huge stone pressing her chest depressedly. Ice Spirit Bird said in mind, "Master, she is very weak and not aggressive in the state of childbirth, so I can stop her." "No, it will be troublesome if you are injured. Leave now." Huang Beiyu finished calmly and jumped off Ice Spirit Bird's back. Not only was Ice Spirit Bird shocked by her action, even Feng Lian was surprised as he was watching outside. What did she want to do? Breaking into the attack range of the mythological beast alone and seeking for death? "Ice Shield, go!" Huang Beiyu shouted softly. Suddenly, 12 ice shields stood in front of her, layer by layer. The 12 ice shields was the strongest attack she could give out. Last time when she used Ice Shield, she could merely stop Honorable Spirit for a moment. Though this mythological beast was not as powerful as Honorable Spirit, her actions were totally out of rage. If the golden tiger fought with her life, she would have amazing explosive power. So Huang Beiyu dared not to be careless. The golden flames on the golden tiger hit those ice shields. The front 6 ice shields immediately fragmented, and the behind ones also had cracks appearing. The attack was not successful. The golden tiger immediately started the second wave of attacks. The golden flame rushed in all its fury. Huang Beiyu tutted. A snow-white vitality amulet suddenly appeared in her hand. It flew into the air. Huang Beiyu glanced at it quickly, and then sealed it at once. This was a simple amulet left by Honorable Spirit. It's easy to use. The channel connecting with the amulet could be created by Ice Attribute Vitality. But she had never tried before and didn't know its power. Ice Shield, go! After the golden tiger's golden flame broke her first 12 ice shields, the second ice shields was immediately built and the snow-white amulet was pasted on it. Do you think you can stop me? The golden tiger saw her use the ice shield again and sneered disdainfully. The gold flames on her body condensed into a larger and stronger flame. She scratched her sharp claws in the air for 3 consecutive times. Then 3 flames rushed forward like thunder and collided on the ice shield. The ice shields that had been enforced by the amulet shook for a while. The glimmering snow-white light flashed across the ice shields. The first 3 ice shields cracked and smashed, but the remainings were still impregnable. The golden tiger was shocked by the result and looked incredulously at the remaining 9 ice shields. How could that be possible? How could her golden flame not break even the ice shield of a simple summoner? As a powerful mythological beast, she could never accept such blows. Despite the extreme pain in abdomen, she still began to condense the 3rd attack of the golden flame. Huang Beiyu jumped lightly over ice shield and looked at the golden tiger with arms held. Are you going to exhaust all your vitality to fight with me and die with the baby beast in your belly? None of your business. Damn human, I must kill you today. The golden tiger roared into the air. Huang Beiyu smiled lightly and said, if you kill me, then no one can help you. The golden tiger hesitated for a moment. The pain of childbirth made her whole body shiver. Her legs, which barely supported her on the ground, were shaking. It was very powerful for the golden tiger to fight against Huang Beiyu with strong strength for such a long time. Seeing the hesitation in her eyes, Huang Beiyu continued to say, I don't want to fight with you. If your baby beast doesn't come out right now, it will die. Humph, I won't believe in human beings. The golden tiger wheezed and said. Obviously, she was exhausted. You will believe in me, Huang Beiyu said firmly. The golden tiger looked up at her and asked, why? Because of this. Huang Beiyu raised her hand and the black beast without boundaries came out in her palm. Its whole pure and thick black, and its complex and ancient lines all made it somehow mysterious. Even the mythical beast golden tiger took half a step back. As a mystical beast, you should be able to feel stronger power of the ancient jade. If I really want to fight against you, it won't take much effort due to your weak state in childbirth. Huang Beiyu calmly said. Although there were some exaggerations in her words, it was true that the power of beast without boundaries could not to be underestimated. The more powerful the spiritual beast was, the stronger power it could feel. It was just that she didn't know how to make use of it. Even so, the power of that simple vitality amulet she had just revealed was strong enough to make the golden tiger believe her words. The bright white light flashed on Ice Shield. The soft and bright hair of the golden tiger gradually appeared dim. Huang Beiyu jumped down from Ice Shield. She raised her hand slightly and said softly, "Don't worry. I just want to help you." Under her gentle soothing voice and the tweedle of Feng Lian's guqin not far away, the mood of the golden tiger really calmed down gradually. However, at the moment when Huang Beiyu was about to approach her, she suddenly raised her head. "Swear to God." Huang Beiyu smiled gently. She raised 2 fingers to the sky without hesitation, and swore, "I, Huang Beiyu, swear that if I do anything that hurts the golden tiger and the baby beast, I will be struck by lightning and split into 2 halves." As soon as the oath was finished, a thunderclap flashed across the sky that had just been hit by the cyclone of Feng Lian and the golden tiger. An oath, once made, shall not be violated, or the thunderclap would continuously strike you down until you are dead. The golden tiger was a little relieved. She couldn't support herself any more. She leaned over the green vines and gasped heavily. The quick war just now had consumed too much of her vitality, and now she could only rely on the continuous supply of green vitality on the vine. "Human, is your name Huang Beiyu?" asked Golden Tiger weakly. Huang Beiyu took out the black cloak from the space ring and covered it on the golden tiger's body. She put her hand on the abdomen of the golden tiger and gently pressed it. She could feel the squirming of the baby beast in her abdomen. "Yes, my name is Huang Beiyu," she answered. The baby beast was still crawling, which made them a little relieved. She asked, "The baby beast is okay. Can you make it?" The higher level the spiritual beast was, the more difficult and dangerous it would be when giving birth to a baby. It would be much more difficult for a mythological beast like the golden tiger. "Yes, my child, You must come out smoothly. The golden tiger whispered. Huang Beiyu tightly pressed her lips. At this time, Feng Lian came up from behind. As soon as the golden tiger felt his breath, she roared at a low voice. He is with me. Huang Beiyu appeased. He is with me. Huang Beiyu appeased as she looked up and said to Feng Lian, go and inspect the surrounding area. Don't let anyone near here. Feng Lian nodded and left. Huang Beiyu turned back and said, the baby beast has been formed in your abdomen. It's too huge, which makes it hard for you to give birth. Now I'm going to pull her out by hand. You have to endure the pain. The golden tiger nodded, then opened her mouth and bit on a thick vine. She closed her eyes and totally relied on Huang Beiyu. After the oath, the mythological beast didn't doubt her anymore. Seeing this, Huang Beiyu dared not be careless. She took the alcohol out of the space ring, which was a necessity for every student who came to Floating Forest. Once meeting powerful spiritual beasts, they would drink it to boost up their courage. Although this idea was a little funny, it was a good way. At least for now, she really needed a drink to strengthen her courage. She lifted her head and took a big gulp from the jar. Then she poured the rest of the alcohol over her hands. When she was training in the 21st century, she saw the master deliver a horse in the horse farm. The alcohol was used for disinfection. Although mythological beast might not necessarily be afraid of viruses or other things, she still did it because it was better safe than sorry. She slowly put one hand into the golden tiger's body. Animals were basically the same in body structures. Now the golden tiger's cervix was opened. Normally she would have been able to give birth to a baby beast by now. However, this baby beast was so large that it didn't look like an ordinary baby beast at all. Huang Beiyu finally felt the baby beast after a while. She tried to correct the baby's position and bring its head down. She grabbed the two forelimbs of the baby, let its body curl up as much as possible, and slowly pulled it out. During this process, a lot of blood flowed out from the golden tiger's body. It didn't get any relief even though she had continuously absorbed the vitality on the vine. Huang Beiyu couldn't help sweating. Was this the extreme bleeding that rarely happens when a woman gave birth to a child? Huang Beiyu's heart raced suddenly as she dragged the baby beast. The golden tiger was also exerting strength. But every time she exerted her strength, more blood flowed out. Huang Beiyu hurriedly said, "Your bleeding is getting worse. What should I do?" "Keep dragging." The golden tiger roared, obviously in great pain. Huang Beiyu nodded and continued. Soon the baby beast started coming out of the mother's body. First were the small, golden forelegs. She cried happily, "It's coming out. I see the forelegs." The golden tiger was relieved. Some wet liquid threatening to pour out of her eyes. Then finally, the head of the baby beast with tiny golden fluff surrounding it slowly appeared, all the while being accompanied by a light golden flame. Now that the head came out, the rest of the body easily slid out. Huang Beiyu was sweating all over. She wrapped the little baby beast with the cloak and said, "My friend is a wind attribute summoner. He knows healing. I will call him over." Huang Beiyu. The golden tiger looked at her baby beast and slowly said, "No need. Yesterday I was in the west of Floating Forest and fought with an adult multi-eyed cold toad. I have been seriously hurt. Your friend can't save me." "Seriously hurt?" Huang Beiyu's eyes were wide open. How could it be? Giving birth with a serious injury. No wonder she was so weak. "How can I help you? The baby beast is so young. If you put her in the floating forest now, a mere stronger spiritual beast can easily kill her." The baby beast, which had just come out of the mother's womb, was protected by the barrier of the mythological beast. However, the barrier was useless for a powerful spiritual beast. If the baby beast was born to be an orphan, wouldn't it be too unlucky? "Huang Beiyu, I am a pure gold spirit tiger. This is my child. Make a contract with him." The golden tiger looked up at Huang Beiyu and said, "If not for this human, she would not be able to give birth to the baby beast smoothly. Even if she barely did it, once she died, The newborn baby beast would not be able to survive from the attack of those fierce spiritual beasts in the floating forest. Life in the floating forest was completely under the rules of the law of the jungle. Huang Beiyu was shocked. Make a contract with a baby mythological beast. Which would mean she has a mythological beast as a summoning spirit beast. The pennies from heaven made her a little dizzy, but she still stayed calm. Surely, she was happy to have a mythological beast as a summoning spirit beast, but she would not get carried away. He is too small to decide. I will not make a contract with him, Huang Beiyu said. The golden tiger looked at her in shock. Average human beings would have been overjoyed on hearing that they can make a contract with a mythological beast, and would take immediate actions. But this female human refused. After the shock, the golden tiger couldn't help admiring her character and said, "Well, you can help me raise him. If he is willing to make a contract with you after growing up, it will be great. Otherwise, I have something else for you as compensation." The golden tiger opened her mouth, spitting out a golden crystal. She waved her big claw and sent it to Huang Beiyu. Huang Beiyu was slightly surprised and said, "This is your beast nucleus." This was the first time that Huang Beiyu had seen a beast nucleus, because only mythological beasts can agglomerate beast nucleus. It looked wrinkled, as small as an apple, but was in a flame-like golden color because of the fire attribute of the golden tiger. The beast nucleus was condensed with the strength of mythological beasts. Once spitting out the beast nucleus, the mythological beast would definitely not be able to pull through. The strength in the beast nucleus could be absorbed by human beings depending on his or her cultivation. For example, a low-level 3-star summoner could only move up 1 star even if he got a beast nucleus of the mythological beast. But if the summoner was powerful enough, there would be unexpected gains. Anyway, I can't use it anymore. You swore that you wouldn't hurt my child. That's your reward. The golden tiger lowered her head and nuzzled the baby beast who had not yet opened his eyes. It sounded like the golden tiger had made a decision. Huang Beiyu didn't say more. She reached for the beast nucleus, and slowly said, "You said that it's the multi-eyed cold toad in the west of floating forest that had greatly beaten you?" "That's right. It's a 6th-level spiritual beast with strong power. When I was about to give birth, he came. So I was defeated and seriously injured," replied the golden tiger. Huang Beiyu held her hands and said, "If I become stronger in the future, I will kill him for you." The golden tiger glanced at her admiringly and said, "Huang Beiyu, you are the most righteous human I have ever seen." Huang Beiyu said with a smile, "If you accept someone's money, you have to eliminate disasters for him. I learned this from another human." Golden Tiger took a silent look at her baby beast, then pushed him to Huang Beiyu and said, "Please take my baby and leave." Huang Beiyu held the baby pure gold spirit tiger. He hadn't opened his eyes yet, sleeping soundly like a cute and lovely puppy whose tiny body was covered with light golden fluff. "We came here to find a few medicinal materials. I wonder if you can help me," Huang Beiyu said. "What kind of medicine materials?" asked the golden tiger. "The earth attribute earth spirit plant and the thunder attribute horn stone," Huang Beiyu replied. "Ah, earth spirit plant," the golden tiger said as she put aside the vines with claws. A patch of dark blue land came into sight, which was covered with a slimy saliva layer of spiritual beasts. Under the transparent saliva, the earth attribute medicinal material with green lights, earth spirit plant, loomed over. They had searched high and low, but only to find it when they least expected to. Huang Beiyu immediately jumped down, swept the slimy saliva on the ground with ice feathers, then dug out several earth spirit plants. As for the thunder attribute hornstone, go straight eastward, you will see a rocky beach. That's where they are. The golden tiger added. "Thank you very much," Huang Beiyu replied. After getting what she wanted, Huang Beiyu said goodbye to the golden tiger, then took the baby pure gold spirit tiger out to meet with Feng Lianyi. Seeing her holding the baby beast, Feng Lianyi was a little surprised. He looked up at the direction of the golden tiger and saw that the green vines were gradually withering. He understood. "Now we have got the earth spirit plant. Let's go east and we'll find the horn stone." Huang Beiyu glanced at him and said with a poker face. Then she walked straight to the east. Feng Lian kept up and said, "What are you going to do with the baby beast?" "Keep it." "You are going to keep a mythological beast?" Feng Lian said with a slight smile, "How can you take him out without others doubting his origin? Besides, on Cart Continent, it's very dangerous to have a baby mythological beast." "Sure, I know that. But everything will be fine if only I can cover his essence of a mythological beast." She once saw an elixir on the scroll of refined medicines of medicine Saint Du Jiu, which could temporarily change one's appearance after drinking. Since it was useful for human beings, it should also be useful for spiritual beasts. It was not difficult to refine the elixir, except that the needed medical materials were a little expensive. She had long wanted to try, so she asked Dong Ling to buy the medical materials a few days ago. Maybe she could find a place to refine it quietly later. She said so confidently that Feng Lian knew she must have had a solution in mind. He couldn't help but be more curious about her. What on earth could stump her? As expected, after a short walk to the east, they saw a rocky beach, where many floating lights gathered. They shone so brightly that everything on the rocky beach was clearly visible. There were some places on the rocky beach occasionally flashing lightning. Probably, they were where horn stones were hidden. "I will find the horn stone. Go and find out how to cover up the essence of this mythological beast. After finding the horn stone, we'll go back," Feng Lian proposed. Although Feng Lian had made some contributions to gain the pure gold spirit tiger, he didn't seem to covet the baby pure gold spirit tiger at all. His calm facing a mythological beast made Huang Beiyu admire him. "Thank you," Huang Beiyu said lightly. Then she walked into the woods on the side of the rocky beach with pure gold spirit tiger. Feng Lian looked at her back and smiled lightly. Little girl, at last, she was a little polite to him. The surrounding spiritual beasts had all escaped away from fear of the golden tiger, so it was basically safe. Huang Beiyu found a big tree and climbed up. She put the baby pure gold spirit tiger at her feet, and then made 36 ice shields around. In this way, she wouldn't worry about being attacked by those floating lights while refining the elixir later using vitality. It was a kind of waste setting as much as 36 ice shields. But for insurance sake, she couldn't be stingy. After all, those medical materials were very expensive. She took out the purple quenching golden furnace, and placed the medical materials one by one according to their attributes. Then she gathered vitality in hands to form fire flames burning in the purple quenching golden furnace. She had refined elixirs many times before, so this time she was very familiar with the procedure. Besides, with the methods recorded in Scroll of Refined Medicines, it yielded twice the result with half the effort. Only after about an hour, the elixir was ready. This elixir was called Silver Snake Dan, which was named after the silver snake, the most important and expensive medical material in it. Silver snake was not a high-level spiritual beast, but it was rare to see. It grew in the snow plateau and lived in the frozen snowfield all year round. Therefore, its whole body was beautiful silvery white. It was said that Silver Snake Dan was an elixir extremely loved by some noble women in the past. After eating it, people can maintain youth for at least 3 to 5 years. The Silver Snake Dan made by Huang Beiyu was refined according to the records in Scroll of Refined Medicines. Therefore, it was different in nature from those made for the noble women. This Silver Snake Dan could change one's appearance, including quality and other characteristics. Huang Beiyu put the Silver Snake Dan into baby pure gold spirit tiger's mouth. The little guy swallowed it directly, which frightened Huang Beiyu. What if the baby beast choked to death? But in fact, it was unnecessary to worry. After eating the Silver Snake Dan, the pure gold spirit tiger was still asleep lovingly, only the pale golden light on his body disappearing slowly. The gorgeous golden fluff gradually turned into ordinary patterned tiger furs. It was really useful. Huang Beiyu was very happy. Now, she could keep the baby beast openly and righteously. The baby tiger needn't to hide like the ice spirit bird. Now that she had made it, she couldn't keep Feng Lian wait any longer. She took back the 36 ice shields and jumped down from the tree holding the pure gold spirit tiger. A few steps later, she heard a rude shout behind, "Who is there? Get out." Huang Beiyu frowned. There were other people in Floating Forest. Those who were not scared away by the golden tiger must be masters. She stopped but didn't turn around. The people behind her had already stepped up. There were at least 10 people judging from the footstep. "It's a little girl. You scared me," the man said. "Hey, how dare an ordinary girl break into the Floating Forest alone? She must be a disguised master." "Ding Qi, don't underestimate the enemy," another man said. "Brother Huang Shao is right. Nowadays, little girls can be amazing. Look at the bitch Hong Lian. It makes me angry just thinking of her," a third man said. Ding Qi was the man shouting at the beginning. After listening to the words, he nodded and said, "Yes, we can't underestimate the enemy. This little girl must be weird. Hey, little girl, where are you from?" Chapter 347, Prestigious Hong Lian, 1, Proofreader. Chun Bun. They had 10 people, all of which were masters. Therefore, facing an unknown little girl, they had nothing to worry about. Huang Beiyu licked her lips. Who are they? Why did they mention Hong Lian? Besides, it seems that they are quite familiar with that Hong Lian from their words. She didn't reply. Feeling that Ding Qi was coming forward, Huang Beiyu raised her head, looking at Ding Qi coldly. The harsh eyes of Huang Beiyu made Ding Qi greatly shocked. His expression immediately changed and a deep chill grew in his heart, making him shiver. He couldn't help but step back and then fell to the ground with a thump. Huang Beiyu was surprised. Is she so scary? Seeing his reaction, his companions thought that they had met a powerful opponent. So they took out their weapons one after another. Unexpectedly, there were 4 summoners among these 10 people. What's more, the 4 were summoners superior to 7 stars with spiritual beasts above level 10. The rest were all Budo masters above the Golden Warrior level, even including a first-level Blade Master. Each of these people seemed to have experienced hundreds of battles. If they came to blows, she alone would definitely be on the lower hand fighting with a dozen of people. Surrounded by murderousness, Huang Beiyu was about to be besieged. At that time, Ding Qi, who fell to the ground, suddenly shouted, "Stop. Don't be presumptuous." Hearing his shout, everyone looked at each other. Huang Shao said, "Ding Qi, what's the matter with you?" Huang Beiyu also felt absurd. 1 second ago, they were about to fight. But 1 second later, they stopped. How come? She was just about to roll up her sleeves for battle. Ding Qi climbed to Huang Beiyu's feet, knelt down and flattered, "Prestigious Hong Lian, we didn't know you are here. We failed to recognize your prestigious self. Please forgive our offense." Huang Beiyu frowned. "Prestigious Hong Lian?" Ding Qi's words made other people all shocked. Their faces changed dramatically. They quickly took back their weapons and ran up. They knelt down immediately and cried, "Prestigious Hong Lian, we know our faults. Please forgive us. Please forgive us. We won't dare to do it again. Your prestigious is as mighty as the heaven. Long live with the earth. Conquering the world. Superior to anyone. Conquering the world. Superior to anyone. Long live your prestigious." Suddenly, the people who were going to fight against her just now all knelt in front of her to please, flatter and beg for mercy. How ridiculous. Huang Beiyu had fiery red hair at the moment, without expression on her delicate and decent face. Her cold and merciless appearance made these people scared. Huang Beiyu thought in mind, why did they call her prestigious Hong Lian? Does she look like the Hong Lian who killed Sima Guiyang? No. If they looked similar, why wasn't Sima Guiyang surprised seeing her that day? Or even Sima Guiyang hadn't seen Hong Lian's appearance in person? This seemed reasonable. Because Hong Lian belonged to Guang Yarrow Hall, which was famous for its mystery. People there would definitely not show their appearances easily. Thinking of this, Huang Beiyu was relieved. Since these people had mistaken her with Hong Lian, why not take it to get some information? She looked at these people expressionlessly, thinking of the arrogant tone and posture of Hong Lian that day. How dare you speak ill of me behind my back? You are really getting tired of living, Huang Beiyu reproached. On hearing the cold voice, these people shivered like chaffs. The man named Huang Shao was quite sedate. He hurriedly said, "Please calm your anger, you're prestigious. We just said something wrong, and we will punish ourselves." Punish yourselves? Good. First, everyone, break one finger. An arrogant arc showed up at the corner of Huang Beiyue's mouth. Like a god looking down at ants, she looked down at these people kneeling at her feet. Huang Shao and others looked rather pale. They were so scared that their lips had been bitten. However, Hong Lian asked them to break their fingers. How dare they disobey? Prestigious Hong Lian was the most powerful person in the whole Guang Yarrow Hall, apart from Sage King. No one dared to challenge her even in the whole Cart continent. Those 9-star summoners, no matter how powerful they were said to be, would be totally defeated by prestigious Hong Lian with a single attack. How dare these nobodies say no to prestigious Hong Lian? Moreover, prestigious Hong Lian had a ferocious temperament. If you didn't do as she said, it would be even worse. All these people knew this well. The only way to survive was to obey the order of prestigious Hong Lian and break their fingers. Therefore, everyone took out their own daggers or weapons, determined and cut off their little finger. Suddenly, several painful sobs and cries, even deliberately lowered, echoed in the floating forest. Those floating lights in midair were shaking their long fins one after another. It seemed that the smell of blood made them a little excited. In addition, those people released some vitality just now. Though for a short period of time, many floating lights had been attracted, floating around those who had broken their fingers. Huang Beiyu smiled coldly. They were really a group of obedient fools. On the contrary, it showed that Hong Lian was really powerful. Since these people dared not question her words at all, and even hurt themselves, it could be imagined how dominant Hong Lian was. Prestigious Hong Lian, please calm your anger. The man named Huang Shao, though sweating with pain, begged her fawningly. Huang Beiyu snorted softly yet coldly, and said, "The bloody fingers on the ground are so disgusting." Yes. Hearing that, Huang Shao immediately dug the ground with his bloody hands, and buried their severed fingers together with the blood. Others also followed his actions. Then Huang Beiyu, with her mouth curled contentedly, asked casually and haughtily, "Why are you here?" Huang Shao immediately replied, "You're prestigious. Yesterday you asked us to come to the floating forest to look for the injured mythological beast. But we didn't find any trace for a long time after we came in. Until this afternoon, we finally heard the sound of the spiritual beast running away in the east forest. We thought that it was the mythological beast, so we rushed here. So they were here for the golden tiger who was seriously injured by the multi-eyed cold toad. The golden tiger once said that she was seriously injured by the multi-eyed cold toad in the west forest. Hong Lian was still in Linhua City the day before yesterday. How could she cross the floating forest to the west and saw the golden tiger seriously injured in such a short time? Did she go through the floating forest alone or with the hidden man that day? Anyway, the powerful strength of Hong Lian was way too amazing. When spiritual beasts hadn't escaped away, every place in the floating forest was highly risky. Even now, Huang Beiyu still didn't know how to cross the forest. In this regard, Hong Lian was really awesome. How's it going? Did you find the mythological beast? Huang Beiyu asked in a cold voice. The pure gold spirit tiger in her arms was still sleeping, not showing any sign of waking up. She wrapped it in a cloak, so these people could not figure out what it was. "You're prestigious. We just arrived at the place where it showed the threat of the mythological beast, but only to find out that the fire attribute mythological beast was actually dead." So, Huang Shao said in a lower voice. He was afraid of being punished. "How about the animal nucleus?" Huang Beiyu glanced at him. The cold and powerful aura of Huang Beiyu immediately made these tall men lean down, almost to the ground. Huang Shao said cautiously, animal nucleus, huh? No animal nucleus. Huang Beiyu asked coldly. How is it possible that there is no animal nucleus after the death of a mythological beast? Are you guys cheating me? You're prestigious. We would never have the guts to cheat you. Huang Xiao trembled and shouted. When we rushed there, the mythological beast had died, and the nucleus had been missing. But there were signs of fighting at the scene. I'm afraid that someone had taken it away before us. Huang Beiyu felt it funny to hear this. If these people knew that she was the one to have taken the nucleus away, and they were here kneeling to beg for her mercy, wouldn't they be furious? I will investigate this matter. If you dare to cheat me with one word, you know the consequences. Huang Beiyu threatened. Yes. Thanks, you're prestigious, for your mercy. Huang Xiao led the group of people to kowtow immediately. Get up. Huang Beiyu waved her hand and said coldly. Huang Xiao and others stood up. The man named Ding Qi immediately flattered and said, You're prestigious, your gorgeous hair color suits you really well. Other people nodded. They had never seen prestigious Hong Lian in red hair. Compared with the black hair before, it was more arrogant and gorgeous. Huang Beiyu glanced at them and said, It's an accident. Whoever dares to mention it again in the future will be killed without forgiveness. She threatened them so seriously because she was afraid that these people would leak out that they once saw her. By that time, if the real Hong Lian found out, Huang Beiyu would be in trouble. Yes. These people immediately bowed and answered. They didn't doubt because prestigious Hong Lian used to like her beautiful black hair best. Now, although she still looked brilliant in red hair, how could she change her favorite color but for an accident? Now that they had seen prestigious Hong Lian lose face, in the future, they must stitch their mouths tightly and never leak out anything. Otherwise, they would be killed without doubt. While they were talking, suddenly they heard footsteps coming from the front. Then a white clear figure showed up from the bright and dark floating lights. Huang Xiao and several people immediately went up to show their loyalty. They bravely stood in front of Huang Beiyu, as if they had no fear of death. The white figure stopped, seeming a little surprised at the scene. The purple eyes looked puzzled under the floating lights. Huang Beiyu said to herself, Oh no, why is Feng Lianyi here? Huang Beiyu wanted to say something to remind Feng Lianyi. He was a clever man, so he must know what to say. But before she spoke, Huang Xiao, who stood in front of her, saw the appearance of Feng Lianyi and shouted out in surprise. Xiu Luo City. He's from Xiu Luo City. Brother Huang, what do you mean? Ding Qi cried out in fear. Huang Xiao left him aside, but turned to Huang Beiyu and whispered, You're prestigious. This is a person from Xiu Luo City. I have seen him before. What should we do now? Xiu Luo City, Huang Beiyu whispered. She looked up thoughtfully at Feng Lianyi. He looked cool and not surprised. Xiu Luo City was the darkest and most horrible organization in Cart Continent. It was said to be a place more terrible than hell. People in Xiu Luo City were cruel, bloodthirsty, and ruthless. Anyone who dared to provoke them, even if it was a whole country, would be destroyed by them. Such a horrible place would make everyone on Cart Continent afraid upon hearing its name. But except for the rumors, no one knew what the real Xiu Luo City looked like. Feng Lianyi is from Xiu Luo City? Are you sure? Huang Beiyu asked in a cold voice. Huang Xiao hurriedly said, You're prestigious. This guy is the most conspicuous among the group of monsters in Xiu Luo City. How can I mistake him with others? Feng Lianyi was so good-looking that it was hard for people who had seen him to forget him. Huang Beiyu nodded. She looked at Feng Lianyi again. But he was still not affected. Huang Beiyu finally said, This man has some background. I'm afraid he also has unfathomable strength. You can't deal with him. Step aside. Hearing this, Huang Xiao and others were delighted. They said, Your prestigious is awesome. Thanks, you're prestigious. It was hard to deal with people of Xiu Luo City. But with prestigious Hong Lian, they were more relieved. Please be careful, you're prestigious. Huang Xiao said as he led his companions to retreat from the back. Huang Beiyu had been looking straight at Feng Lianyi's face all through. Then, she began to talk with a light banter, Xiu Luo City. How great is Prince Yi? After these people left, Feng Lian smiled slowly and said, "Compared with prestigious Hong Lian, I am nobody." Huang Beiyu snorted and replied, "Don't pretend in front of me. I've thought that you might not be a good person, but I actually didn't expect that you really aren't a good person." Feng Lian touched his nose and smiled happily. "You are angry again." Huang Beiyu's dark eyes suddenly turned cold and she stared at him. Feng Lian immediately said, "Well, next time if you want to know something, just ask me. I will never conceal." "Okay. Who wants to know about you? Who are you? What do you have to do with me?" Huang Beiyu said coldly. She held the baby pure gold spirit tiger and was about to leave. Her cold mood made Feng Lian a little disappointed. He turned his head and looked at her. His smile gradually vanished. Then Feng Lian said, "Since those people have seen you and I, there will be a potential threat if they live. We'd better solve them now." "Well, do I have to deal with such things?" Huang Beiyu said in a queen-like manner. "I see." Feng Lian nodded. Not daring to disturb the queen anymore, he disappeared in a flash. Huang Shao and his companions went fast. If prestigious Hong Lian fought with the person from Luo City and attracted too many floating lights, it would not be good for them. It was not suitable to watch the battle for these small potatoes. They'd better run away as soon as possible. "Big brother Huang, I have a feeling that prestigious Hong Lian is a little strange today," Ding Qi said doubtfully as he walked quickly. Another person nodded in agreement. "Prestigious Mo Lian doesn't seem to be with her." Huang Shao said, "Maybe it's because prestigious Hong Lian's hair is a little different that we feel she's strange. Besides, prestigious Mo Lian seems to not like being with prestigious Hong Lian." Big brother Huang is also right. If it wasn't for prestigious Mo Lian's poor living ability, he would surely have nothing to do with prestigious Hong Lian. Ding Qi scratched his head and finally smiled with relief. "I hope prestigious Hong Lian will successfully solve the person from Luo City," Ding Qi said. Huang Shao said with a dignified looking, "I don't think that person can be solved easily. Last time I saw him, he was, Big brother Huang, be careful." Ding Qi suddenly shouted, but it was too late. As soon as he shouted out, the head of Huang Shao rolled down from his neck. Soundless and stirless, invisible and shapeless, only a breeze blew over. It was extremely eerie in the dark forest. "Who is it?" Ding Qi turned around and shouted. But he couldn't see anything in the surrounding void darkness. The floating lights were moving slowly. A few of them flew around Ding Qi with their long fins floating. Ding Qi was so furious that he slashed the floating lights with the sword in hand. His companion's head was at feet, but he couldn't care about anything else. The hidden master would not let them go, but when he raised his sword, the floating lights suddenly hissed. They shook their long fins, opened their mouths and bit his neck. The floating lights started to suck his blood together. "Ding Laroa!" The rest of the people shouted. They took out their weapons and called up their summoning beasts, and came up to expel the floating lights. These floating lights sucked the blood so fast, which was more horrible than the blue bat and other spiritual beasts. In just a moment, Ding Qi had been sucked to death and fell onto the ground. "Damn! Who is it?" A man couldn't help but stand up and shout. Suddenly a gust of wind swept across his face. Then his eyes opened wide and his head rolled down his neck. "Ghost! Ghost!" When the rest of the people saw this, they were all frightened and panicked. They turned around and began to flee. Suddenly, only a few steps away, a strong wind came from all directions, wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. The roaring wind was sharper than the blade, whirling at full speed. Those who fled, whether they were summoners, summoning beasts, or Budo masters, all screamed and were mince. The blood whirled and splashed in the strong wind. On the ground were the badly mutilated limbs, which was too horrible to look at. In an instant, the 10-odd summoners above 7 stars, warriors above golden level and the first-level blade master all died distressingly, only leaving a pile of slag. Ding Qi convulsed on the ground, because his neck was bitten off by the floating lights. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.